Good evening, everyone that's watching wherever you might be. I can't believe it, but we're finally at the last program for Philippine Startup Week 2020 virtual conference, which is the Seedstars World Pitching Competition. I'm Kat Chan, and I'm the director of Cuba, and I'm here to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us here this evening. Cuba is the Philippines National Innovation Hub, and we stand for Bayanihan, or teamwork, and we're all about uplifting Filipino startups. We do this through our three core actions, the first being to grow the startup community, the second to develop our startups, and last but not the least, to collaborate with the ecosystem through various programs, including this one. Our whole vision at Cuba is Filipino startups changing the world. And today I'm really excited to hear all of these fantastic pitches, which we see great potential in being the next game-changing startup for the Philippines. This is all part of Philippine Startup Week 2020. We've had to do it virtually this year, but we're finally at the tail end of it. I hope you enjoyed everything that's been going on for this whole week. Again, this is the largest gathering of startup community enablers and ecosystem partners and startups for the country, and it was brought to you and made possible through the efforts of the Department of Trade and Industry, the Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Information and Communications Technology, and of course, Cuba Innovation Hub, which I represent. And we've had a fantastic week of showcasing the Filipino startups and our startup community here. Our theme for this year is Filipino startups powering up the new normal. It's been incredibly challenging times, as all of you may definitely know, but we do see huge potential to, in times of disruption, just like this one, for startups to emerge and create the solutions that are needed for us to rebuild and grow better than ever. This year, we had 5 tracks for Philippine Startup Week. These include Discover, to allow us to learn more about our ecosystem and the different players. Develop, to hone our skills as startup founders and entrepreneurs. Collaborate, to explore opportunities for working together with different stakeholders. Invest, to get funding and much needed resources for our startups. And last but not the least, Showcase, which we're doing today, where we are trying to show off the best of what our startup ecosystem has to offer. It's been, again, an incredible 5 days for Philippine Startup Week. We have over 100 hours of content that we've shared just this past week, and over 5,000 registered attendees. And most importantly, over 100 startups that were showcased and will be participating. Today, we're also hearing pitches from some of the top startups that are competing in this competition. I'd like to thank everybody that was part of this, including all of the startup ecosystem enablers, all of the community event organizers, all of our speakers, and of course, most especially you for tuning in and being part of this whole event with us. And so without further ado, we're finally here for the Seedstars pitching competition. I'm really excited about all of the startups that are pitching here today. We'll be selecting one winner that will represent the Philippines in advance to the next stages of this global competition. I'd especially want to thank the Department of Trade and Industry, and in particular, their Slingshot program that's all about showcasing and putting the best Filipino startups out there in the global stage, for making this event possible. They partnered with Seedstars to really come up with this activity, and I'm so excited to see the pitches from the finalists, as well as our panel discussion today that's really all about our startups going global and creating that impact. So yeah, without further ado, let's start the Seedstars World Competition, pitching competition, and back to you, Thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kat, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to the Online Seedstars World Competition 2020 for Seedstars Manila. And thanks a lot to Slingshot, Philippine Startup Week, DTI, and Kubo for having us here today. So again, welcome to the Seedstars World Competition, which this year, of course, given the current situation and the COVID restriction, is fully moved online in our online in an online version. My name is Giovanni Corradini. I'm a project manager at Seedstars, and I'll be your host today. For all the people connected who don't really know what Seedstars does and what we've been doing over the past few years, Seedstars is a Swiss company that was founded in 2012 with the goal of impacting people's lives in emerging markets through technology and entrepreneurship. And we are doing this supported by amazing partners all over the world, supporting entrepreneurs all across emerging markets. We have programs that range from the idea to the Series A stage. And over the past few years, we have launched more than 15 programs and supported thousands of entrepreneurs. We're also collaborating with the global community. As you can see, the Seedstars World Competition currently runs in more than 90 ecosystems all across emerging markets. And we have a huge network of investors, mentors, and active supporters. The Seedstars World Competition selection process this year has changed, of course, adapting to this online version. We have screened and received more than 4,700 applications globally, all across emerging markets. And to all the startups that applied, what we have done is give them access to the Online Seedstars Academy, which is a series of webinars, training material, and articles to support them in their growth stage. And after that, basically, we have selected the finalists that would compete to become actually the winner of each local event. The winner is going to be selected through pitching events like this one today at the Seedstars Manila leg of the competition, where the best 5 to 10 startups will pitch to get selected as the winner. Then each of the winner at the local stage will advance to the regional stage of the competition. And at the regional stage, they will have access to one full month of the investment readiness program, which is a training developed by the Seedstars investment team, composed of a set of live webinar, mentoring group, one-on-one session, and so on and so forth, that is really aiming at supporting startups in their way to fundraise. After that, all the winners of the regional stage will actually get the chance to advance to the global stage, which is the grand finale, where they get a chance to win up to 500K in equity investment. We have additional prizes for the startups competing and the winner. To all the top 3 startups of each event, they will get access to our network of partners, saving up to 49K in IT tools. Also, again, we are providing this access to the Online Seedstars Academy, the Investment Readiness Program, as well as the opportunity to be selected to be part of the Seedstars Growth Program, which involves also up to 50K in investment cash. Last but not least, for the winner and some of the participants, especially to the top 3, they will still get access to our mentor network, our investment network, and of course, the winner will get a chance to compete for the big prize of 500K in equity investment at the grand finale. We have today 7 great startups that have been passed the selection. I haven't mentioned it before, but we received almost 100 applications for the Seedstars Manila event this year. So I won't share any words about them as they'll have the chance to pitch today, but I welcome Tuala, Tangere, Lexmeet, MedHive, Omagini, Rich52, and Workbin to the competition. Also this year, we have an amazing jury that will help us select the winner of the Seedstars Manila competition this year. We have startup coach Artie Lopez, the co-founder of BrainSparks and the Seedstars ambassador for the Philippines. Typhoon Ugur, the company builder at Growth Dynamics and a long-term friend of Seedstars, as well as Doris Clements, the head of partnership for Southeast Asia at Seedstars. So please, Doris, feel free to introduce yourself and share a few words.
Well, thank you so much for the quick introduction. As John mentioned, my name is Doris. I work with our partners in Southeast Asia with Seedstars. And I'm very excited to be here today, and I'm looking forward to some amazing pitches to represent the Philippines at our Seedstars World Competition.
Thank you so much, Doris. Artie, do you want to share anything?
Hi everyone, this is Startup Coach Artie of Brain Sparks, where we turn dreamers into founders. This is my sixth year being a part of the Seed Stars competition, and it's always been one great event after another. So I'm very happy to be an ambassador and to be joining this event today, and joined by all of the other Seed Stars people from all over the world. So congratulations to our startups.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Artie. And last but not least, Typhoon, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be a part of this event. So thank you for the invitation. Just a couple of words about myself. After a long corporate background, I've been working now with promising startups internationally, especially in the area of scaling up and facilitating growth. So, and also I'm working with mature companies for digital transformation and adjusting to the expectations of the new world, especially after the post-pandemic era. So I think it's a great pleasure for me to be in the jury today, and I really look forward to seeing some wonderful startups.
Thanks a lot to the jury for introducing themselves and joining us today for this online event. I will now leave the floor to the first startup who's going to pitch today, which is Jeffrey from Twala. As a reminder, you will have 5 minutes to pitch, and then this is going to be followed by a 10 minutes Q&A with the jury. So the floor is yours, Jeffrey. Feel free to share your screen, unmute yourself, and present. I will keep the time, and we'll stop you after 5 minutes to move to the next section of the Q&A. Thanks a lot, and feel free to start anytime you want.
Hello, everyone. I am Jeffrey Reyes, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Twala, and we enable trust in the digital world. So this is the contract of today. The status quo of contract cycle is that we print, we meet, and we sign, and the process is proven to be costly, inefficient, and insecure. And for the past 20 years, since e-signature became legal, we never went digital because of security and legality concerns. February last year, security researchers from a university in Germany disclosed that a vulnerability of the most PDF solutions, that it is possible to change the document content and timestamp even after digitally signing and encrypting it, known as shadow attack. The Philippine laws requires both electronic and digital signature to be legal, to ensure signer's identity is traceable to an individual and that it is tamper-proof using cryptographic technology, something that the current e-signature apps are lacking. We are used to paper-based processes, but then the pandemic has changed the way we do business, and manual processing of documents is just not enough. Introducing Twala, the next generation e-signature platform for signing, verifying, and storing digital contracts and documents powered by Ethereum blockchain smart contracts. Twala promises a better user experience. We are making the document process simpler, safer, and faster. With just a click of a button, you can sign contracts anywhere, anytime using any laptops or mobile phone. So what makes Twala better? Twala, compared to competitors, offers both individual electronic and digital signature, making us more legal as it satisfies both the requirements of the E-commerce Act and the rules on electronic evidence. We verify the identities of our signers via an AI-enabled identity verification or KYC process. Our API is powerful. Unlike competitor that can only sign office documents, ours can sign any type of digital assets like videos, images, CAD files, and more. Endless possible use cases for blockchain-based digital signature. Hashes of all the documents signed within Twala are anchored in the main Ethereum network, making it independently verifiable virtually forever. So what are the opportunities? Every department from every company in all industries have some sort of an agreement workflows that are manual and just waiting to be automated. The global e-signature market is worth $25 billion and a CAGR of 36.7% pre-COVID, and we're expecting it to grow even faster. There are almost 10,000 medium-sized and large enterprises and more than 80,000 small enterprises in the Philippines. We have estimated that the Philippine market e-signature right now is worth around 150 million to 200 million US dollars and still growing. And if we focus on just 5%, that translates to 7.5 to $10 million in annual recurring revenue. Our business model is straightforward, subscription. We charge a base of $9 for single users and $40 for small businesses. And we also have a custom pricing for mid-sized businesses and large enterprises. We also charge for API use for companies who want to integrate their solutions to ours. We are still in a very early stage. We just launched our beta more than 3 months ago, and we have engaged more than 30 businesses and more than 200 individual users. Most of them are now in free trials and belongs to the legal community. We are expecting to release a new and improved UI UX next month based on our feedback on the feedbacks of our users. We also won in the recent QBO Rescue Startup competition. Our team is a perfect mix of skills and experience to build a company that can scale. I, as the CEO, has more than 10 years of IT experience and have worked for global companies such as IBM, Accenture, and Travelport, leading highly scalable projects. Paul and Ed, my two tech co-founders, are certified blockchain developers. Ed works on the front end and Paul works on the back end. Third, who was a Fulbright scholar in New York and a Philippine bar top notcher, helps connect with the legal community. And AR, who is a marketing professional, works on customer acquisition. Our mission is to enable trust in the digital world and help businesses shift to the new and better normal. Again, this is Twala, and thank you.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. Thanks a lot for the presentation and perfectly on time. So jurors, whoever wants to start, you guys have 10 minutes. So please feel free to ask Jeffrey any question you might have.
Maybe I can ask the first question. Jeffrey, can you tell us a little bit about your traction position?
So right now we are still on the very early stages of our startup. So we have engaged more than 35 companies right now, and most of them are in free trial. So we are still on the validation stage and working with our early users, getting feedbacks from our users. And as I said in my presentation, we are expecting to launch a new UI and UX by next month, that based on the feedback that we got from our early users. So that's our traction as of the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi Jeffrey, thanks so much for your presentation. My question kind of aligns with the question Typhoon was asking. So you said you're still in the early stages and you've been doing some testing. Could you share some of the feedback you have received from those early customers? How are they using it? How are they finding it valuable?
Yeah, so initially we created the app very secure because we thought that that's the best feature that we can offer to our customers. But it turns out that the user experience suffered because of that. So we're kind of redesigning on how the way we onboard our users, getting rid of all those friction when it comes to creating an account and all that in the early engagement with the app of our customers. And it is really valuable for our customers since they can sign contracts online and doesn't have to worry if it's legally valid, or is it legally acceptable in the Philippines, because we have worked with the legal community to ensure that the legal side, of the technology that we have right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. A second question I would have is, for those companies, how are you planning to approach them? And have you done any estimation on what the costs of acquiring a customer would be like?
So we have many channels. We have partnership with IT companies that already has customers and are looking for solutions to integrate into their system. So another channel is direct selling with companies. We have a dedicated sales team that uh, go direct with the SMEs sectors and the enterprise sector as well, where we present and demo our solutions and ask them on how we can help them, how our solution can help them with their how they do their business. So with regards to customer acquisition, we are still not in the position to have an estimation yet on like the cost of the acquisition, the customer. As we don't have that much data yet to base it upon. But based on our studies with other software as a service companies, it's on the average that an average of 1 month to 90 days of a sales cycle for bigger companies, and around less than 30 days for individual users and small businesses. So we're kind of not on the position yet to make a valid assessment on the customer acquisition cost right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Art.
So you mentioned a lot with regards to the legality of your product and platform in the Philippines. And I just wanted to touch a little bit about that and ask you what were the steps that you took to be able to assure that your platform is indeed legal or acceptable, legally acceptable. Did you discuss this with any regulatory bodies or any lawmakers, I guess?
Well, yes. So actually we created a white paper discussing about the legalities of our solutions. And we fortunately we had a chance to present it to some lawyers who are very familiar with the laws regarding the e-signature laws in the Philippines. And they said that, yes, indeed, we are legally binding, and we are um, we have satisfied the requirements of both the E-commerce Act and the rules on electronic evidence. So lawyers that are very familiar and who actually happens to drafted the law agreed as well on the legalities of our solution.
Okay, thank you for that. And a quick follow-up, is there any other product or platform that can say this, that they are uh, also they are within the same standards that you have addressed?
Well, I've seen some similar solutions in the market, but I'm not really sure as I have not checked the overall flows on how they do their solution. So I'm not really that sure. But as far as I know, based on our market study before we created all these solutions, Tuala solutions, is as of now we are the only solution that is like both uh, that satisfy both the e-commerce act and the rules on electronic evidence of the Supreme Court.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey, this is a quick question. Where do you see your key challenge in the next 3 to 6 months?
Key challenge. For me, maybe it will be on customer acquisition. So there is a need for the market to be educated about e-signature laws. And most of the companies in the Philippines, they're not really aware with the legal frameworks of how e-signature should be done in the Philippines. Because we have a very unique legal requirements for e-signature in the Philippines. So it's really strict. We broadly defined e-signature in the E-commerce Act, but we have a limited recognition of it in the rules on electronic evidence of the Supreme Court. So even lawyers of companies, they're not really aware of that legal framework. So it's a challenge for us to educate the market. So we partner with some law firms to educate the market, and we are engaging with the legal community as well, doing a lot of webinars around the legalities of e-signatures so that we can educate the market better, and to explain our solutions and have them try our solutions.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. If there is no further question from the jury, we are perfectly on time, so we can move to the second startup. So thanks a lot again, Jeffrey, for the presentation and for all this explanation. It was a pleasure talking to you, and good luck and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
All right. Welcome, Martin from Tangere. Please feel free to, you have 5 minutes to pitch and then a 10 minutes Q&A whenever you're ready.
Thank you, John. So let me start with the pitch. So did you know that President Duterte got a record high 91% rating last October? And did you also know that the survey was conducted on the first week of September? And a lot has happened from the time the survey was conducted and from the time it was presented by mainstream media. And did you know that in our latest survey published by Manila Bulletin, the president got a 74% approval rating? It's still high. It's a survey we conducted in 3 days, and it was published by Manila Bulletin immediately. And that is the truth delivered on time with Tangere Survey with Prices. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Martin Peñaflor, founder of Tangere Survey with Prices, the largest online market research panel in the Philippines. In terms of the market research challenges, it's expensive. It's only something that large enterprises can afford. It's not representative. We've got clients in the Visayas, Mindanao area that's using data here in Manila. And it takes traditional players 5 to 6 weeks before they can give the data. And in these fast changing times, the data is almost worthless. With us, we provide the data in 5 days and 5 times the number of respondents. And it comes with big data analytics. The respondents will be coming from our Tangere community. It's an active community that we built through incentives, through community development. And from there, we can provide data in 5 days. As of October 30, 2020, we built around 388,192 active members nationwide. We built them organically, as I mentioned, because of the incentives and because of the feeling of community. It's representative of the Philippine population in terms of the age group, socioeconomic status, location, and gender. And these are the active members of our community. In terms of the market size, the market research industry in the Philippines is a $1 billion industry dominated by the traditional players, the Nielsens and Kantars of the world. And it's something that, as I mentioned earlier, only large enterprises can afford in terms of the investment, and it's one of their main competitive advantage over small and medium enterprises. Our vision for Tangere is to provide real-time market research to 2,300 companies in 3 years, focus on the food and consumer goods industries, ranging for both small, medium, and large enterprises. We also take note that the elections in the Philippines is coming up. It's months away, and it's another $500 million industry, and we're already working with a couple of big name politicians that are gunning for a higher position by 2022. Our basic plan, our basic survey, it starts at around $2,000 or 100,000 pesos with 5,000 respondents nationwide using our proprietary sampling method. We are already working with the top brands in the Philippines, Goldilocks, NutriAsia, to name a few, ITI. We are also working with a handful of multinational clients, though I can't place them here because they're not yet reference clients. We provide both quantitative and qualitative surveys. Quantitative survey It can be a one-off run ranging from 2,000 US dollar per survey. It can be a subscription run around 20,000 US dollar for a 10 surveys in a year with a bonus 2 surveys. We also provide qualitative surveys, the traditional focus group discussions, in-depth interviews. We are part of PANA and Morris here in the Philippines. The team is led by professionals with more than 150 years of combined leadership experience from different industries: market research, statistics, political science, data analytics, software as a service. As the CEO of the company, I'm one of the highly decorated consultants here in the Philippines and in the world, with more than 10 certifications from SAP. I've been an SAP solution architect for 14 years. We are also receiving guidance from Jojo Flores. He's the founder of Plug and Play, a Silicon Valley-based accelerator, and Mr. William Chulin is our first investor. He's the president and CEO of Mega Global Corporation, the makers of the #1 sardines in the Philippines. In terms of the news and media, we won the final pitch competition from CNN Philippines last year. We were also awarded by the Asia Leaders Award, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce, as one of the tech startups of the year for 2019. Our surveys have been presented multiple times by mainstream media, both local and projects. In terms of our traction, the number of available.
I'm really sorry to interrupt. We've passed the 5 minutes, so I need to stop you here. But I'm sure that the jury will, with the question, give you the chance to walk through the other slides that you have.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're trying to keep it Swiss. So please, jurors, anyone that wants to start and ask questions to Martin.
Hi, Martin. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think I'm just going to jump in because the slide you're showing is kind of in line with a few of the questions I had regarding the community of your active members. And my first question would be, how do you classify an active member?
An active member is a member of our community who have responded to our survey in the past 3 months. So they have at least responded to at least one survey.
And another question I have is, just assuming that this is a tech platform and it's based on an app. So also from your demographics earlier, there is a tendency towards a younger population. I think the biggest group of your group was aged 18 to 35. So I just wanted to see if that is actively a group that you're trying to attract, or whether you are taking some countermeasures to also bring in more people from other age groups to kind of balance the set.
That's a great question, Doris. They are basically the early adopters for Tangere. So they are the demographics that we targeted initially. And now we've done some activation on our end to get the older respondents because they're needed by our clients. Some of them, for example, they need moms aged between 30 to 50 with children aged 8 to 12 years old. So we've done some activations on our end. Before the pandemic, we were doing, we call them eyeballs. It's an old school approach of a meetup for our community. So we've been going to Davao, Cebu, different cities here in the Philippines to meet with our members. It's our way of activating them. But now, since we're limited by the pandemic, so we've been doing online meetups now, targeted mostly to the demographics that we need to meet. For example, you mentioned the age. So now that the election season is coming, one of the demographics that's highly needed will be those aged between 36 and above. So we've been doing some activations as well for it.
Okay, perfect. And my final question would be, how do you incentivize this age group to join and actively participate?
It's similar, Doris, to what we do to the younger generations, but we change the prices a bit. Like, say, for example, if for a younger generation, they're more inclined for gadgets. So every time they use the application, they earn points that they can use to redeem coins in Gcash, for example, or coins at PH, and they can also win in our weekly raffle draws. So the prices for them ranges for phones, tablets, but for the moms, for example, we give them like diaper package, something like that, or grocery package, something that they can use.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question, Doris.
Let me jump in. Hi, Martin.
Yes.
I will have two questions, two short ones. One question is, of the remaining slides, if there was one point you would like to share which is missing from the presentation, what would that be? Just one point. And the second point is you showed us a big team. Out of that big team, how many are full-time committed?
Thank you for your question, sir. So this was my second to the last slide, the traction slide. I wanted to show you this to prove that in parallel, in proportion to how we increase our members, it's a number of billable surveys that we do for our clients. So it increases our revenue increases in proportion to the number of our respondents. And this is because we are able to cater more to more detailed requirements of our clients. Like, for example, one of the leading beverage industry here in the Philippines is asking for this demographic, then we are able to cater for the requirements. Or initially, we can only target class D and E, the majority of the population in the Philippines. Now we can target class A, B. We're working with one of the top medical company here in the Philippines who caters to class A and B. In terms of the team, full-time will be myself, Irk Acapulco. He's our business development lead. He was the former country lead for Oracle NetSuite in the Philippines. He was my boss before when I was with SAP. Captain Romeo Donaire from the Philippine Airlines. And then we got team of market research professionals. Robin Garcia here, Dr. Robin and Dr. Ardor are from our partners, WR Numero. So they are from our political arm. Same with Jonathan Kamkam. So out of the founders, there are, I guess, 4 full-time, and then we got 3 employees that are also full-time, and then the rest are part-time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, sir.
Okay, I guess Martin, I'm up. So I'm having a little bit of dissonance now with regards to the incentive part of your model. So I'm trying to look at your website here now and looking at the different information here. And the thing that's bothering me is that I'm afraid that the incentivized model might skew the results, making it a little bit less effective and accurate for the client. And I don't know, maybe because the survey takers are incentivized to do more surveys. I don't know if that makes sense. Meaning they might be incentivized to do more surveys less accurately. I just randomly answer just so I can do more, so I can win more. Or is there anything that you can help me understand, or you could say that you guys do to help address this so that it's actually more accurate?
That's a good question, RT. We are often asked about it by our clients or new prospects. So they often ask, will the incentives create bias? So what we do is, let's say we run a beverage-based survey this week. We won't be giving them incentives related to beverages. So we may probably give in phones or cash for that particular survey run. So there wouldn't be any biases for it. And then the survey incentives related to the beverage provided by our clients, for example, will be given in 3 to 4 weeks. What we do now to validate the result, if there are any biases, is we've got clients that are still working with the traditional players, the Nielsen's and Kantars of the world. And we know what's happening with the world right now with the pandemic. So they're not getting any data from them. So we're providing our services to them. often during our presentation with our market research professionals, we ask them, is this uh, is this the same as the data that you got from, let's say, from Nielsen or from Kantar? They're saying that the data is close. And then we've proven this before. As a last point, RT, our members know that Mega is our investor. Since we won the final pitch, it's highly televised, and we promoted it in social media. We did a survey 2 weeks after winning the final pitch, wherein it was Sardines Week. So it was Mega versus the other leading brands here in the Philippines. We were surprised that Mega almost lost that competition. So that's, I guess that's one use case, that there wouldn't be any biases on their end. And in terms of, sorry, I'm talking too much. So in terms of the public sector, the traditional poll research companies are releasing surveys here every month. So what we do to validate the results is we also run our own survey, and it's comparative to the results, give and take the margin of error.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for your question, sir.
Great. Thanks a lot, Martin. If there is any other question, we just have like 1 minute left. So Taurus or Typhoon, otherwise we can move to the third pitching startup today.
Quick one from me. You have a number of customers right now. You are proposing to go and focus on small and medium enterprises, but you mentioned a number of large companies. How do you see your customer base breaking down between large companies and small and medium over time?
Our vision is to grow it to in proportion to what we have right now. So it's 75% are from the SME categories, and then 25% will be for the large enterprises and multinational companies. So that's how we envision to grow the mix of our client base in the upcoming years.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martin, for your presentation and for all the answers. Thanks a lot. It was really insightful. So I wish you good luck and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, perfect. So now up next, we have Marlon from Lexmeet. So Marlon, you have 5 minutes to pitch, and then we'll be followed by 10 minutes of Q&A with the jury. So the floor is yours. Whenever you're ready, you can start.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Marlon Valderrama, CEO of Lexmeet. Having a legal problem is no joke. One big life decision without a lawyer's advice will probably land you in jail. One big life decision without a lawyer-prepared legal document would probably cost you a fortune. Imagine, if you can solve these problems by using only your cell phone, our life will be much easier. Imagine this. You could get free legal opinion crowdsourcing, talk to outmatched lawyers online, a crowdsourced legal works online, a scroll system that ensures legal works delivery, a chatbot AI that makes legal documents for you, electronic notary with blockchain, online mediation that settles legal disputes, and many more. We believe that we are doing this in Lexmeet because we are solving the problem of access to legal service. Not only here in the Philippines, but also in the Philippines. The 2019 World Justice Project survey shows that Filipinos experiencing legal problems, only 20% of them will be able to access legal help. 80% will not receive any. No wonder we hear injustice because of the lack of legal service accessibility. There's really a legal service gap because access to lawyer is very difficult. We have 45,000 lawyers in the Philippines for 100 million Filipinos, a ratio of 1 lawyer for every 2,200 Filipinos. The international standard is 1 lawyer for every 250 citizens. That is way below. Access to justice is really a big problem, and we have a solution for that. Our solution is online legal service accessibility for clients by giving them an affordable, safe, and convenient platform and marketplace of legal-related products and services, a one-stop shop for all legal services needs. For lawyers, on the other hand, we are providing the lawyers with affordable, safe, and convenient platform to give them online presence and law office automation. As of now, we have 3 products that we launched in web and mobile application, both in Android and iOS version. We are developing 4 more products for 2021, and we have 12 more products which we want to develop for the next 5 years. Assist is a online legal crowdsourcing platform that gathers lawyers' votes and comments on clients and legal problems to give the latter an initial legal opinion on the case without spending a single cent for it. Consult is a paid online consultation service platform wherein client can talk to a lawyer directly with a unique client-lawyer matching algorithm. It's very simple. Just load credits, submit legal problem, select lawyer, and start online legal consultation. For lawyers, we created a cloud-based law office management software that helps lawyers to automate their law practice and assist them on their day-to-day operations. Under development, we have 2 products. Docs, a chatbot that can assemble legal documents for you using artificial intelligence. E-Notary, a remote electronic notarial system that makes notarization of documents easy, convenient, and secured. Our business model is simple. Each product has different revenue streams. We earn from advertising fees, platform fees, one-time setup fee, monthly subscription fee, storage fee, and per module fee. As of now, we already have 36,000 clients and 750 lawyers registered with 2 million worth of transaction. Before COVID pandemic, there's a big opportunity for vulnerable people with a combined market of 13 million OFWs, SMEs, startups, and PWDs, and 25,000 small medium law firms. With the threat of COVID, online legal transactions are now the trend, and courts are already online. The opportunity is much bigger now. We have Philippines now, by the next 3 years, Southeast Asia, and so on. We have what it takes because of our unique selling proposition. We believe that we have the potential to be successful owing to the combined skills and experience of the people behind it. Our team are composed of people who work together for a long period of time with complementary skills and collaborative attitude. We have domain expertise in the field needed to make the startup work successful. Our next plan is to increase traction by 100,000 clients, 2,000 lawyers, and 60 to 100 transactions per day. Deploy 3 products, set up operation, marketing, and business development operation. And we will be needing 10 million pesos for 10% equity. Without funding, we're able to attain traction. With funding, we can achieve more. We hope that you join us in our journey and be part of a great endeavor of bringing to the world your everyday legal app. Let's meet legal help in a click.
Thank you so much, Marlon, for your presentation. Jurors, any questions for Marlon?
Hi, Marlon. This is Typhoon. Listening to your presentation, and thank you very much for a very well done presentation, by the way. I have 2 concerns. One is, obviously, you have gone into a number of areas in the legal world. And my question is, because of these activities, I see your plate is full. How do you intend to manage these quite different areas of online legal activity? Do you have, initial focus, or do you plan to build all of them at the same time? And attached to it, the second question is, you are taking online in many aspects a highly classical industry, if you like. How ready is the market to fuel your growth expectations?
Okay. Number one, in answer to your question, our system is an integrated system. We first built an online legal consultation platform so that all products revolves around those online legal consultation platform. That is where our income revenue streams really is focused. because every time you talk to a lawyer, we charge 40% to the client as a platform fee. So every time you use legal documents, you need to talk to a lawyer. You use the online legal consultation platform. So we are doing it step by step. We first built a online legal consultation platform, then the legal works, then the assist, the legal crowdsourcing, and the legal document assembly, then the notarization. So it's all integrated in one ecosystem wherein the client would no longer get out of the system, so that the lawyer and client would just settle and solve the legal problems online. So that's really our vision. Uh, that's why we have so many products, but this product is in a one-stop shop, so that there would no longer be leakage or disintermediation or something like they would no longer deal offline. So that's really our in answer to your number two question is that we think the with the pandemic COVID-19, the market is uh, really uh, really ready for this kind of disruption. For example, our courts now are doing online hearings. Many clients are now getting online legal consultations. They are now getting online documents and online notarization. So it's really now ready. 2 or 3 years ago, it's not yet ready. But I think in the Philippines, it's now ready.
Okay, I can jump in. Thank you so much, Marlon, for your presentation. I think I have a follow-on question in line with what you just mentioned of how do you ensure that the customer and the lawyer actually stay on the platform and not the customer just using the platform to identify a lawyer and then leave the platform and meet in person. And my second question, kind of in line with this, is of course, now there is a bit of momentum towards digital. So it is true that currently, I'm assuming a lot of people are looking for those solutions online. But do you believe that also after the pandemic, hopefully one day is over, when people can meet in person again, that this will still be a trend that will be continued?
Okay. Number one, in my answer for your first question is that uh, the reason why we put a legal management software, so that once the lawyer handles the case of a client, all the reportings would be done online also. All the submission of the documents, all the billings, all the payments would be done online, so that they would no longer need to go to the law office just to pay the lawyer. They don't need to submit the legal documents. They would just upload it. So it is a one ecosystem wherein the lawyer and the client could just go to the portal and continue their legal business there, even if after their meeting, after the legal advice, legal consultation, and their engagement, while they are prosecuting their case, they are still in the system of LexSmith because of that legal management software that we call LexOffice. In answer to your number two is that we believe that once the lawyer and the client already adopted this kind of behavior of dealing with their lawyers online, I think with the convenience, it would be hard for them not to get out again and deal with the lawyer offline. Probably there are some, but I think with the convenience that we are offering to the clients and the lawyers, it would be difficult for them to get out of the system. That's why we are trying hard to make it sticky to both clients and lawyers.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, attorney. How are you?
Hi, Archie.
I just wanted to ask. So currently, in terms of traction, how are you guys doing? What is the product or what is the category that is being used the most? And also on the revenue aspect, what is pushing or driving the revenue growth at this point?
Okay. Number one, the mostly used product is Assist, the free online legal crowdsourcing platform. So this is free. They're submitting legal problems. That is where we increase our conversion to the paid products using Consult, because that is where they start their their selection of the lawyer. Once they are impressed with the lawyer's comment in the pre-product, they are being pushed to get that lawyer using the paid product of Consult. So as of now, with our three products, the most the biggest revenue earner is the new product called Works, because the amount being loaded by clients is a minimum of 10,000 pesos, because they are paying the lawyer, and our fee is a percentage of that lawyer's fee. So it's much lucrative to have that product, the Works. Consult is our everyday income earner. We have 5 to 10 clients per day, but the Works is really our I think a good source of revenue for us, because it's based on the lawyer's fee that they pay to that the clients pay to the lawyer.
Okay. Um, so the top usage is on the free side, but then on the paid side, what brings the most revenue? It's the
The Works, the legal Works escrow delivery system.
it's current now. It's working already.
Yeah, it's in web app.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do you have some follow-up question? Do you have some first numbers on the conversion rate of those people? Like how many people does it take to do a free consultation to get one active transaction on the platform?
Yeah, our conversion rate, we did it purposely, that pre-product, because we wanted to increase our conversion rate, and we validated it that it's very helpful in the conversion. From the conversion of 10% from our original one, we're able to increase it to 35%. So if there are 100 registrations and 100 of them use Lex Assist, 35 persons are converted into paying clients.
That's great. And I think a final question, do you have some sort of code of conduct with those lawyers, just assuming that there might be an advantage or like a benefit towards those lawyers to initially say, yes, you need a lawyer to do those cases, in case they might potentially not. So just checking if that's something you were looking into, or has that ever been a problem?
It's not a problem on our part, because we don't usually police the answer of the lawyers, no. But we also train the lawyers how to answer the clients honestly, and not for the purpose of marketing their services. So, and also there's a limited space for lawyers to answer, for us, for them to at least give them at least a small information about the legal problem, so that they would go to the paid product.
So thank you, Marlon, again for your presentation and for all these answers. It was a pleasure having you today. So have a good rest of the day. Congratulations. Up next, we have Gabriel from MedHive. So Gabriel, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes to pitch and then 10 minutes for the Q&A. So whenever you're ready, feel free.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Gab, co-founder of MedHive. So thank you for coming to my presentation. So first, I'd like to start with a story from one of our customers, Richard Lirio, from the Dagupan Doctors Hospital. He stated that even before the pandemic, their hospital has had a hard time purchasing medical supplies. But because of the pandemic, it's made it even harder for them to do so. And this is really because of three main problems that plague them. The first is an issue of everything being manual and inefficient. So the previous process is that you'd have to call over a med rep to go to your hospital and to give you proposals. But of course, because of the pandemic, that has now been thrown out of the window and it's not happening today, nor will it happen in the near future. The next is a problem of being uninformed. Now, because of this lack of med reps, organizations now don't know the going price for medical supplies. And this urgent need for medical supplies and lack of knowledge means they often end up overpaying. But what's worse is that these two problems merge to create an even bigger problem, and that's an issue of fraud. Increased demand has added more fraudulent suppliers and scammers into the market, and they're taking away from the time resources that hospitals need to treat their patients. But actually, these problems have been here even before the pandemic, especially for small regional hospitals. The pandemic just put these problems in the limelight and put them center stage. And that's why we created MedHive. MedHive is a smarter way to buy medical supplies. With MedHive, we make it easy for you to search for products, ensure the safety and security of your orders, and make receiving and payments much easier. And we do this by curating and verifying every supplier in our market space to ensure that you're dealing with trusted and reliable sellers. We also keep transparency to the whole market by allowing them to see and canvas products from different suppliers to make it easy to find the cheapest price from the most reliable suppliers. And of course, we digitize the entire order experience. From canvassing, quotations, payment, and even issuing POs. It's all online and it's all on MedHive. So currently, MedHive is being used by 209 hospitals and clinics in the Philippines and have an average monthly basket size of 4,000 USD, all ordering from our pool of around 2,700 products on our platform. And we're happy to say that we've been able to help distribute thousands of pieces of medical supplies during the pandemic. And we couldn't do this without the trust of our partner distributors and brands, such as 3M, Johnson & Johnson, and many more. And of course, we've been able to gain the trust and transact with these medical institutions and organizations that add up to around 1,000 hospitals and clinics that we can onboard onto the platform. And they love us so much because we're really turning a manual and inefficient process into one that's simple, safe, and easy to understand. Our business model is we take an average of a 7.5% per transaction commission from our suppliers, and we're disrupting the MedRep status quo by offering on-site advertising and giving the tools to assist with their content and affiliate marketing in order to improve their marketing in a post-pandemic world. So our market is 22,000 medical institutions nationwide, which is a $1.5 billion total addressable market. And of course, we have our team. So Nigel, our CEO, owns 2 hospitals, and him and his family have over 50 years of experience with dealing with their inefficiencies. I'm Gab, ex-Microsoft, and I handle and oversee all the tech and product development of MedHive. We also have Elle, a Singaporean business enabler and healthcare events manager, who has led marketing teams for large companies and events in Singapore. We also have our investors. We have Eduardo Ban, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. He helps ensure all of our operations and processes have a certain military rigor. We also have Carla Inyon, President of one of the largest pharmaceutical distributors in the Philippines, One Pharma. Carissa Rodriguez, the CEO of a large medical equipment distributor, Philippine Medical Depot, and Melissa, a sales and procurement officer in Novartis and Philip Morris to help us make effective procurement tools and dashboards. So our ask is $400,000 US for a 12 months runway to help us approach and onboard our list of thousands of different medical suppliers and list of 1,000 different hospitals and clinics that we'd like to onboard onto the platform, as well as to develop data-powered tools and dashboards to make procurement even smarter. So in a post-pandemic world, it is now more important than ever for businesses to work together and to work smarter. MedHive will help your hospital get there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gabriel. We appreciate it. So, Jules, that's your time.
I'd like to start off by you guys saw that we are very close advisors to MedHive, so therefore I'm officially recusing myself from the scoring and the question and answer portion. They're a great team, and I hope you guys get to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie.
Thank you, Artie. Doris or Typhoon?
I'm thinking Maybe in 2 points. One is the nature of your customers in terms of size. You know, to what extent you are handling large hospitals type of customers versus small clinics and perhaps individual or small medical setups. That's one dimension. And the second dimension I would be interested to look at is to what extent you are handling private enterprises, which would be much more business-minded, versus government entities, which would be much more process, focused, and potentially some not proper business, let's say.
So for the first question, we're hyper focused on the micro, small, and medium hospitals and clinics. So none of the large hospitals that currently already have their own procurement systems and so on. So we're servicing more of the smaller ones, so especially the ones in regional areas which often don't get the same love as the large hospitals get from suppliers. With regards to the second question on whether we do private or government, our main focus right now is also on private hospitals because they're more they fit more to what we're offering. And government hospitals might be a thing in the future, but currently our target market is private hospitals in the Philippines. Thank you.
Hi, Gab. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was a really good presentation, by the way, so congrats.
Thank you, Doris.
I just have a question regarding the deal size. So what are the products that a customer is usually buying? Is it rather small medical equipment, like masks, for example, currently? Or is it also bigger machines and equipment as well?
So currently, we're also focused mostly on medical disposables, consumables, and the like. So mostly stuff like masks, small medical equipment, and also some small medical machinery, such as blood pressure monitors and so on. So currently, we're not dealing with large medical machinery because there are a lot of different processes, and pretty much the entire procurement process is completely different for those machines. And so we're focusing mostly on fast-moving products like masks, alcohols, PPEs, and so on and so forth.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And my second question would be in terms of liability, because you say you certify those suppliers that you work with, but do you take on any liability in case there is something fraudulent or something not working as it should?
So we sign agreements directly with the supplier to help protect the buyers as well, so that if anything happens within the platform, we have legal recourse against the suppliers. But also, of course, we make sure that our buyers completely understand the suppliers before they even transact. So we make sure to send over any necessary business documents or any information that the buyer might need to know, so that they can also help make their own decision on whether or not to trust a supplier.
Okay, perfect. And I think my final question is just, what do you see, what is the vision for the company? So where do you want to take this in short term, but also then in the long term?
So in the long term, our goal really is to help make healthcare more accessible to everybody. So the reason we're doing this is because we want to be able to help reduce the operations cost of hospitals in buying or purchasing medical supplies. And we hope that that will then trickle down to the consumers, which is why our main goal is to really make procurement more efficient for hospitals everywhere. So we want to be able to give procurement tools and dashboards to help them make smarter decisions, help procurement managers with little experience have the same skill and experience as people who have had years of experience or like large bases of knowledge. So we want to be able to give the people with little experience as much experience as the procurement experts in the industry. And so that's our goal.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doris.
Joan, if you have time, one more question, perhaps?
Sure.
Gabriel, thanks for all the information. One final point from my side. You're essentially running, let's say, an e-commerce platform for a niche market, medical supplies. Okay. If you look at other e-commerce platforms, the danger is it can be easily copied. What is your key strengths strength that is going to keep you as the leader in the game?
Mhm. So definitely we have a gigantic leg up already by having key partners and key people in our company who know and understand the medical industry to a very close extent. Nigel, for example, has him and his family have been running their own hospitals for over 50 years. And because of that, we were able to gain a lot of knowledge over the medical industry really quickly. We were able to understand and connect with people he's made connections with already throughout their years of work. And we've been able to already gain trust with these organizations that normally don't trust anybody. And because of this, we've been also building off of that. We've been showing them that our product is great. Our product does things well. One of our hospitals that we're talking to actually said that, previously, before they found out about us, they spent over 10 million pesos, around like 200,000 USD, on a system that does the exact same things that we do, but we offer it for pretty much free. And that really happened because we knew the industry really closely, and we knew key people in the industries to help us grow our company faster and connect with the right people even quicker. Thank you, Typhon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gabriel. Thanks a lot to the juries for the questions. Congratulations again for the presentation. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's keep in touch. So have a good rest of the day, and thanks again, Gabriel.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much for the first 4 startups that have pitched in the first half of the competition. So once again, this is one of Kubo's main objectives, is helping our startups provide international access and exposure. This is why we're in partnership with DTI, where we work together with different international organizations, such as Seedstars World, to provide Philippine startups with these types of opportunities. Hopefully in the future, we will be able to start sending our startups into international delegations and more international events where they can further represent the Philippine startup ecosystem. So please to make sure to keep in touch with us. We are doing this to make sure that all of the startups here in the Philippines become more global and more successful. Now it's time to take a break from the competition, as we will be having a special panel discussion on pandemic-proof investment principles from the emerging markets. Again, due to the current situation, we'll be having this online panel for this segment. But one of the key takeaways that we've got is that from doing online events, it will be easier for us to invite international speakers for the panel. We really wanted to get international perspective to find the fundamentals of startups and investors to make better choices when dealing with emerging markets. For those who are watching, make sure to keep taking notes, as this will be an amazing session for all of you guys. That being said, I would like to introduce a good friend of Kubo and Seedstars World. He is a key representative in the Philippine startup ecosystem, the founding member and lead investors of Manila Angel Network, and a Seedstar ambassador and mentor. Joseph, who will be moderating tonight's panel discussion, please feel free to introduce yourself and introduce the panels that we have for today.
Thank you, Carlo. It's my privilege and pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel today from all over the world. Let's start with our guest from Georgia, Natya Parehashvili. And I apologize if I didn't say that properly. Natya is a senior manager in investor relations and sector lead for business services at Invest in Georgia. She advises and consults foreign companies in the process of exploring investment opportunities in Georgia, all the way from country assessment and site selection, launching businesses, and scaling up operations. Can you say hello, Natya?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me at this panel session. It's really great honor for me having connection with the Seedstars, which started back in 2016 when I was in the team who organized first ever Seedstars local competition in Georgia. And every time it's a great pleasure for me to connect with the Seedstars again, considering its huge contributions towards advancing ecosystems in emerging markets and tremendous efforts in changing the people's lives.
Wonderful. And joining us also from Singapore is Chia Janyang. He's a principal at Saison Capital, a leading fintech-focused venture fund, who's done especially well in emerging markets like Southeast Asia and India. Their direct investments include Grab, as well as Shopback, which is Southeast Asia's largest shopping and cashback rewards platform. Chi is an avid mountain climber, indie music fan, and network builder that brings together investors and startups for building the greater good. Chia, say hello.
Thanks a lot, Joseph. It's really great to be here and meet so many really interesting faces. Happy to be here.
Fantastic, Chia. Thanks for being here. It's also my pleasure to introduce my good friend Nichipat Ark, who represent Open Space Ventures as its advisor for Thailand coverage. Open Space has invested in Southeast Asia and startups we know, such as Gojek, Kumu, and Beauty Manila. She has played a vital role in nurturing the startup scene, not just in Thailand through Bangkok Venture Club, but also through the region. As a fellow Seedstar ambassador, I know personally that she's been at the heart of bringing startups, investors, and mentors across Southeast Asia together and elevating the quality of the network here. Prior to Open Space, Nietzsche was in the executive committee as well as an MD and head of financial markets for Standard Chartered Bank Thailand. Nietzsche, say hello.
Hi guys, it's so great to be here and great to see you again, Joseph. I miss you and miss John so much. So thanks for having me for this session.
Kap Kun Kap, it's good to have you, Nietzsche. And joining us from Dubai, is that correct, Ovais?
That's totally correct.
Ovais Nakvi, the partner at Rise
Good
Capital.
pronunciation. And you pronounce my name perfectly. I love it.
Rise is actually one of the few groups that have been successful in building unicorns across every major region in the world and has offices in Mexico, Buenos Aires, Lagos, Dubai, Mumbai, and Singapore. Ovais himself executed Wanda.com, the MENA region's leading platform for entrepreneurs, and has served on the boards in Africa, MENA, Pakistan, and has been a World Economic Forum Global Future Council member for innovation and entrepreneurship. In his past life, he was actually fortunate enough to meet Muhammad Ali and party with P. Diddy when he put together a limited edition publication called GOAT, a tribute to Muhammad Ali. Ovais, good to see you.
Amazing research.
Thank you very much.
So, you know, we're, again, very happy to participate now and anytime in the future. And it's an exciting time. I mean, it's challenging for the globe and it's challenging for many people, and we shouldn't forget that, but it's also a tremendous time for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we do have to remember that even in the darkest of times, the thing that we can't lose touch of is hope, because without that, nothing moves forward. So
absolutely.
On that note, I'd like to kick it off and just start asking the questions, because today we're really trying to find the fundamentals for startups, investors, and our partner stakeholders to make better choices so that we're able to deal with and capture the opportunities in the emerging markets as we address this new normal that I don't need to go on about too much more. Before we begin, I think one of the first things we have to do is just give people a bit of a world tour, because we have the privilege of having you guys from all over the world, and myself and our audience really might not be as familiar as we should be about your corner of the world. So for my first question, I'd love for you to share something about what makes your corner of the world especially amazing from an investment perspective. I mean, why should investors and startups pay attention to where you're from? And I'd like to start with Natia, if that's all right.
Thank you very much. So Georgia is one of the great success stories on emerging markets in terms of the transformation. The country is strategically located itself in the middle of Europe and Asia, and is ranked globally on the 7th place in World Bank's Ease of Doing Business. And the country boasts the world's 3rd lowest total tax rate. Country has association agreement with European Union, ensuring the legislation alignment as well as the mapped out reforms agenda. And of course, the country offers the skilled, multilingual, and competitively priced workforce, which can be a huge benefit for global companies and investors from across the world. And also with the time proximity and cultural similarities, Georgia remains an excellent option for finding the right people and serving the teams to deliver high quality services as well as innovative solutions to the target markets. So in terms of the market access, in terms of the flexible business environment and the overall cost competitive possibilities for international companies, Georgia is a definitely great location for companies from all over the world, as well as for investors, either they are considering M&As or starting greenfield investment projects in the country. And since the new reality is encouraging global companies to reshape their work processes as well as the rethink their location strategies, definitely Georgia is a prominent destination to consider in a new normal.
Fantastic. And I do think Georgia might be a wonderful bridge for Asia to the European market as well. And next, I'd like to swing over our map to Ovais. Can you tell us about the parts of the world that you're looking at and what makes those unique and special emerging markets?
Sure. So I think, 3 or 4 things to focus on. One is, we're sitting here in what is the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC. And the GCC is a group of countries in the Gulf region spanning Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and so forth. So, it sits within a sub-region called Middle East North Africa, which is substantial population, substantial addressable market. And some of the big success stories in recent years, like Careem, which I was fortunate enough to invest in, which was the Uber competitor, which got acquired by Uber in January, transaction completed in January for $3.1 billion. Have been able to exploit the wider region. So if you take Careem and if you take another business like Kitopi, which is a cloud kitchen player in the region, the success of these businesses, I think, has been their ability to address and reach the whole market across Middle East, North Africa, 300 million plus population. So I think, number one, addressable market. Number two, skill set in terms of technology, in terms of functional skills within businesses, in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, and in terms of tons and tons of diaspora talent, which has come back. Most of the founders you meet tend to have gone to college in Europe or America, come back, want to do something, understand the sectors they want to operate in. So that's another factor, which is skill set of founders has definitely enhanced significantly over the last 10 years. People who've been there, done it, may have failed, inverted commas, may have succeeded, but they're second, third time entrepreneurs. And that's a major asset. Third is obviously addressable capital. The thing everyone remembers about the region here is, oil wealth, money. And that's kind of generally true when you look at purchasing power and when you look at family offices and institutions and government. I think there's a tremendous connectivity between government and the private sector around enabling entrepreneurship. Historically oil dependent and fossil fuel dependent economies looking to diversify and therefore willing to put substantial sums of government and private sector money behind venture capital and behind private equity, both globally and regionally. So you're seeing the emergence of relatively skilled investors who now have either structured venture capital platforms for themselves or invest through the family office or invest directly as individuals and so on. And then finally, you're starting to see the emergence of foreign money coming in. Historically, it was, IFC and US government, USAID and so forth. But you're now starting to see global funds such as ours and many other players who are starting to look at the region as an attractive market from the perspective of both addressable market and valuation multiples, which is another important factor. So for me, it's all about fundamentals. You've got to have businesses with a profitability mentality, with skilled founding teams, with deep functional skill sets available in the region, and then obviously with available capital. And the final piece I would focus on is, if you go a little bit wider and you look at Pakistan on the one hand, and you look at Turkey on the other, and then you look at the relative proximity of North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, that belt of Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, Pakistan is an enormous addressable market with skilled entrepreneurs and some very great businesses, unicorn businesses emerging. So I find that exciting just because we're sitting, I believe, in the right place from the perspective of infrastructure and consumer and other addressable opportunities.
Excellent. And bring it closer to home, let's look at Southeast Asia. And I'd like to hear from Nicha and her take on what's fantastic about Thailand and the region.
Yeah, I guess I have to do the great pitch, like what OVS and Nadia just done as well, right? So let's try, yeah. And then I think Chia, you will have to help me as well, yeah. So for me, I guess Southeast Asia is super exciting as well, right? Because this year, right now, we already have 400 million internet users, right? This year alone, and then out of the 440 million is the new user that come for this year, right? And then speaking about sort of like GMV, internet economy for Southeast Asia, we have GMV of 100 billion US, right? And then, we expect to grow up to at least 300 billion in 2023, right? So I think with that kind of expected market together with the user, and then on top of this, the user that we are talking about is the heavy user for internet, right? Last year, user would spend, this one just only personal use. Last year, they spent 3.2 hours a day. This year, before the lockdown, is 3.6. During the lockdown, is 4.8. After the lockdown is 4.2, right? So for me as an investor or as a startup, I would like to, do business here because it's just the land grab for, really exciting economy.
Fantastic. Chia, your take?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we predominantly look at India and Southeast Asia. On the fintech side, and we are obviously very excited by what is going on for these two very massive industries. And I think that for one, just to echo, I think what Nietzsche said, you have economies like Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, and the digital economies there are growing at like 20+% CAGRs, right, on a year-on-year basis. And so a lot of very exciting digital growth going on that side. And on the back end, I think, and that's perhaps slightly more interesting, is that you see a lot of infrastructure being built out that really enables not just theoretical digital gains, but the foundation for more and more platforms and more business models to be built on top. I think it's pretty famous now, but the world it has been watching the UPI experiment in India with very great interest and looking into how different business models have been built on top of that type of infrastructure that exists. What type of capabilities can spring up from that kind of foundation, and even talks of that type of infrastructure being set up across Southeast Asia. So I think we've come to a stage where that first layer of digitization has really succeeded pretty successfully with now 13 unicorns in Southeast Asia and over 30 in India, and we are seeing a lot of new business models and companies being built on top of that initial layer of digitization on top of a very fast-growing economy.
Fantastic. And I do think that that does capture it nicely, that one of the key things about emerging markets is the value of the large demographics coming together with opportunities for innovation that are now being more available because of technology. And we're accelerating the adoption of and experimenting with new things that will hopefully create more inclusive breakthroughs for everyone. So since we have the privilege of having you guys here, we want to pick your brains, right? So as investors, if we want better answers, we always say we should ask better questions. So I'd like to ask you guys as investors and from your other investor expert friends, what are the favorite questions you ask startups or yourself before making a call? Because we want to figure out what are these pandemic-proof principles that you hold dear no matter what. Ovais, it looks like you're ready to go.
Okay, so I think, the most important question is really around the defensibility of the business, because, obviously in the post-COVID environment, we're seeing dramatic acceleration in opportunities. I mean, if you take the e-commerce industry where I am, there's an enormous migration of consumers to e-commerce channels from traditional retail into e-commerce across every subcategory, from fashion to online grocery to food delivery. So, you know, the first thing you want to work out is, you know, is the defensibility there? Because, you know, headwinds are easy to capitalize on, but you need to be able to build sustainable advantage and build a moat around your business. So I think, you know, the moat is critical. I think the founding team and their resilience and their capability, if they've got a track record of having done it before, that's critical. But you're really looking, I think, for both the kind of, you know, maturity, the qualitative capabilities, some sense of kind of psychometric insight into their behavior. But more importantly, you're looking for mature people, irrespective of age, because I don't think maturity is linked to age, as we're seeing in the world right now. You could be 70 and be, you know, somewhat moronic, or you can be 25 and be really smart. So, you know, the reality is it's got nothing to do with age. It's got to do with your mindset and your ability to build teams. So I think those are important kind of behavioral factors. And then, you know, obviously when it comes to due diligence and so on, you're taking a look at business models which you believe have inherent kind of commercial operational advantage in those countries. I mean, if you take, you know, food consumption behavior in the GCC region, if you take per capita income, if you take family group sizes, if you take you know, the nature of family structures, I mean, it's obvious that people will eat, even if the traditional restaurant industry starts declining in importance, the importance of food delivery, cloud kitchen, you know, real estate around cloud kitchen, you know, virtual brand creation and cloud kitchen brand creation. You know, you're seeing the emergence of many players, not just Kitopi, but players like Icon and players like Sweetheart Kitchens and so on. And then you map that to India and you map that to Europe, and you can start seeing some tremendous trends happening here, which are going to apply. So, you know, I've done a fair bit of work in Asia. I've seen Thailand and so forth in the past. And, you know, these are outdoor cultures where people go out in groups. They still want to eat. So I think, you know, I don't think things are dead for the traditional restaurant industry at all. In fact, if anything, I think the decay will be somewhat slower in our markets. So, you know, ways in which we can enhance performance in restaurant businesses, enhance business intelligence, ERP, CRM, you know, across traditional restaurant businesses, just those areas of sales enablement are very important, not just, you know, food delivery, in-home dining, but how do you optimize performance of restaurants, traditional restaurant businesses?
Excellent. Thank you, Wais. Anyone else? I'd love to hear your perspective. Nietzsche?
Yeah, I want to share this as well, right? So I guess towards your question, what would be the question I ask myself before I, you know, close one investment, right? The key question for me, I think it's because the way we work at Open Space as well, we you know, we love to be lead investor or at least co-lead investor, and we invest in series A and B. And because of that, we work super closely with the startup, right? So, you know, as we have to work very closely with startup or for at least 3, 4, or 5 years, right? To take it from A to, you know, the same goal. So the question I always ask myself is that, is this the team that I believe in? Is this the team that I can see myself working through all the ups and downs with them? Because, you know, as we all know here, investing in startup is not all rosy stuff, right? It's super tough, right? So yeah, to your question, Joseph, it's really the team. Can I trust myself that whatever that happened, I can sit them down, they can sit me down, and then we have you know, frank discussion how we going to fix it. Yeah, and I think you know, with the investment that we have made with the company that I have worked with, I think that's still the key question. And you know, before COVID, after COVID, during COVID, it has been proven that it's the right question to ask, you know, at least from me.
Fantastic. Chia, your take?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good question. I think that I think what you really want to be able to have a good understanding of is really what that future for that economy and market looks like, right? And always having a preference for for infrastructure in place, which is something that we look at quite heavily. And I think that in times of crisis, specifically on the pandemic side, I think that that really just pushes certain trends of digitization. And I think as a result, and it's terrible to say this, but a lot of our portfolios were able to grow quite quickly because of the requirements brought about by the pandemic. And I think that's one of the benefits of being able to invest into tech, which is, I think, a little bit resilient to some of these trends. I think in emerging markets, we also have to be aware that a lot of the companies we're investing into are actually tech-enabled businesses. And so you can't really avoid the fact that a lot of them will be affected because they will have quite a lot of offline components to that. And so I think at the same time, being able to be aware of how do you switch, how do you automate, digitize some of the necessary tasks and the extent of digitalization that is necessary when you have crises like the pandemic pop up. I think that type of almost like dual skill set is very important to keep an eye out for.
Fantastic. And Natia.
Yes, so important question for a business project, either it's committed by a startup or a global company, would be if it solves only local, but also the global problem, because in the times of crisis, it's very hard to depend only on single market capabilities, especially if the potential of the markets are limited. Countries with a small population like Georgia would be more looking for efficiency, seeking in investments rather than just investments which would like to explore local market capabilities. And as a result of the radical impact of the COVID-19, which had on global economies in such a short period of time, we see that many policymakers and investors are viewing the crisis as a kind of a wake-up call that accelerates a need for a different approach on investing. And we see that there are industries which are hardest hit, for instance, travel and hospitality, automotive manufacturing, and others. Some will, of course, recover quickly once the lockdowns are eased. However, many of them will take years to return to the growth trend. And I would say that result would be accelerating the assets in pandemic-proof industries. And from my personal experience and working with the corporates in terms of location decisions and foreign direct investments, it's clear that M&A activities as well as the greenfield investments will continue to be accelerated in digital industries even until full recovery from the global pandemic crisis and economic recession.
That segues very nicely to my next question, which is, given that there is a lot going on in the world right now, are there new questions that are popping up specifically because of this changing situation, right? Natia, why don't we start with you and then move on to the others?
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, of course, there will be, and already are some changes, and important consideration again is the agility as well as reactiveness in terms of supporting the evolving needs of both customers as well as the investors. And since the decline is expected in all forms of investments, of course, the careful examination of ongoing business models as well as the business continuity plans will take a place and will continue in a new normal.
Fantastic. Ovais, addressing the changing world, what new questions have you put into your repertoire?
Yeah, so no, some great points there from Nadia, because I think, the ability to survive the systemic shock that we've undergone is one thing, which is a major kind of feature that you're looking for. But at the same time, going all out for growth comes with challenges as well, because this is not an environment where you just want to go, let's run with growth and not worry about anything because the headwinds are behind us. So I'll give you a live example. I mean, we invested in a business called Kitopi. It's a cloud kitchen business. It raised capital. last year in 2019. It's going to be raising capital next year. It's a fairly major success story by the benchmark of regional success stories in the last few years. The point being, they had European and US expansion as part of their original investment thesis in 2019. You know what they did post-COVID? They shut down the US and Europe. And the reason was very simple, which is we can't travel there. We can't exert control over the US market. We can't get to New York and sign up kitchen operators and restaurant businesses. We've got headroom for growth in Saudi Arabia. Let's stick to our knitting. Let's execute the GCC and let's max out on regional growth because we can actually achieve it. Net result is that they've exceeded their growth plan for 2020. They are basically well on track to raise another round next year. And they're looking, and we're talking real money, we're looking to raise about $100 million as Series C next year. So my point being, somebody else would go, let's just raise capital and go everywhere. And a seasoned operator is going, you know what, even though food delivery is in our advantage and cloud kitchen is the hot sector at the moment, let's focus down on the region and try not to do too much because actually we can't execute the United States and Europe right now. So that's a prime example of maturity, which is, you know what, let's just think counterintuitively as opposed to try and run and actually make a mess.
Fantastic. Chia, Nietzsche, your thoughts?
Right. I'm sorry. I just want to chime in on that, right? Because I feel that this is exactly what we have seen successful startup is doing as well, right? I guess, a lot of the startups that still going strong, stop focusing about expanding offshore now because, when they cannot see their new team, when they cannot talk to the partner offshore in person, it's quite challenging, right? And a lot of startups that we have worked with, extremely super focused on growth in the country. That's one. And the second one is that they make sure that, in case worse come to worse again, that the pandemic run, the entire year of next year, they still have cash to move on. Yeah.
Fantastic. Chia?
Yeah, I wanted to, sorry. I wanted to add one more thing if I can. Apologies, Chia, which was, I think the role of, investors as board members and the role of governance, I think, has become even more important because, you're starting to get to a point where founders need seasoned people around them who can give them good advice. And that means that as an investor, you're not just putting capital in, you've got to play your part to exert influence and mentoring capability at board level. So apologies to interrupt, but I think our role as investors should never be forgotten in the pressure we apply to founders around doing the right thing. It's our role to make sure we exert our influence as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, actually, I think there's a lot of great points already mentioned. I think Vias' last point, I think, is particularly great because especially during this time, the role of investors is really to be able to provide both that actual support, but also emotional support, and also a lot of the frameworks that frankly a lot of founders might not necessarily have in terms of how do you cut staff, how do you trim out 20% of the staff, and what's the cadence to do it, how exactly can you do it in a dignified way, what kind of runways are important, how long should it be, like how do you really hunker down and what does that mean. So on that note, I think being able to support portfolios in that way is obviously very crucial and part of the investor's job.
Fantastic. And so basically what it boils down to is that even as things change, some things remain true. It's really about getting deeper into it, looking at the models that you're looking at, the maturity of the people behind it, and the math of whether they can make it to survive the tough times. Fantastic. And picking up from what Ovais brought up, right? That's not all doom and gloom out there. I'd love to hear some of the small wins that you've been experiencing or noticed in your investments or in the markets you're playing in general, just to give people something to smile about as the year comes to an end. Ovais, you want to share something else? Another great story?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are 2 or 3 things that you do see. I mean, one shouldn't forget the political context and the macro context. I mean, I think, governments have to behave in a humane way towards people. We have to behave in a human way towards each other. And you're starting to see people who understand that. You've seen it in the post-COVID environment. You've seen the empathetic individuals and you've seen the intolerant individuals. And I think this is a moment in history where, we can adjust our behavior if we need to. I think all of us should look at ourselves and go, what can I do differently to maybe be more human, to be more, sympathetic to the other person. And some of us don't need to, I'm not talking about myself. I think some people are naturally empathetic. Some people are not. Some people are sometimes empathetic and sometimes they're not. You can't be empathetic all the time. If there's underperformance in a business, you can't just say, never mind, let's deal with it later. So, but I think it's a moment where, the behavioral adjustments I can see happening around me. I can see more tolerance. I can see more patience with people. I think most of us are spending more time with our families. I've never spent 18 hours a day with my wife for years. So, I have to tolerate things and she has to tolerate things in me, which may not have been as noticeable before. So I think all of that is making us better people, which I think is a good thing.
Fantastic. Nadia?
Yes, so what I could add to those points, which Orais already mentioned, yeah, definitely every crisis is an opportunity. So pandemic also brought some positive outcomes because we see that individuals, communities, businesses, as well as governments are, of course, learning new ways to connect with each other. The surprising facts might be also the thing about the globalization going more local, because we have seen some vulnerabilities in terms of the cross-border supply chains, especially in the sectors like manufacturing, and those operations are going more and more close to the target markets or homes, so increased need for nearshoring or onshoring. And of course, the work processes which has been changed because of the limitations of movement of people as well as the talents. So today, if people cannot relocate for work, so for them, work will relocate for people. For the jobs which can be performed remotely, of course, companies will move to the global remote workforce models, which is, I would say, quite efficient and flexible in terms of operations as well as the cost savings.
Brilliant.
So if I may chime in a bit here as well, right? I think the positive thing that I've seen in Thailand is that apart from the government, welcome the digital solution, I've seen the big corporation in Thailand has been doing the same thing as well, right? In the past, for the startups to work with the big conglomerate, it took like forever, right? You have to make the appointment and then you have to wait and then the POC, this and that, right? But once the pandemic came, POC is super quick, right? So that's a good thing. And then personally about myself, we are able to make one investment during the pandemic because the situation allowed the entrepreneur to really show their ability of being able to pivot so quickly and move to the new market so quickly. So I guess, for me, is a bonus point of helping me see that among the entrepreneur that I've been watching, which one is really standing out. And yeah, we close one of the investment, which is always a good thing for investor.
Congratulations. Chia, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the great opportunities actually that I'll talk about is maybe on the talent side. I think that with everyone moving really to a remote first working environment, even in emerging countries, I think the availability of talent has just dramatically increased, right? So and I'm sure Open Space has a lot of portfolio companies where you know, you can hire key talent sitting out of Singapore, sitting in Europe, even, but operating in Southeast Asia, contributing to the Southeast Asian economy. And so I think that number one has been really interesting. From an emerging markets perspective, you don't necessarily need somebody to move to Jakarta to operate, or move to Bangalore from the US. And so I think that's opened up a lot of interesting avenues for emerging markets. And I think number two, when you're forcing a lot of these workflows to go online, it tends to become slightly more efficient. And that's really helped to expedite a lot of things, right? When our parent company is a Japanese, a very large Japanese financial institution, and I think it was in the news a few months ago that Japan has finally decided you don't really need to use actual physical seals on documents anymore, which was pushed by the incoming Japanese prime minister. And it's really simple things like that that just became digitized, automated, and all of these like legacy cultures really fall into the wayside because of COVID.
Fantastic. And I'd like to build on that and acknowledge that actually this opportunity is one powerful example of not a small win, but a big win, where people from all over the world are now able to have meetings like this, where and get to interact and engage and build relationships that might not have been as possible or as simple in the old regime, where you'd have to fly over, fight with traffic to connect the dots. Looking forward to connecting the dots with you guys in person at some point soon, but getting to meet you guys in this environment is a great way to open the doors. And that's something that we're seeing not just in these conferences, but for example, in our own the angel investment network, we're able to attract more members and actually close more deals because more people are participating and engaging. So building on that, what are the other emerging trends or fearless forecasts you might have in terms of investment themes that are evolving in the years to come? Natya, go ahead.
Okay, so I will comment on this part. So definitely it's evident that we will see a rise of the contact-free economy, as it was already well said. Work at home as well as the hybrid models of operations will replace the traditional, and digital transformation will be accelerated even more. For this, crisis resiliency as well as the robust infrastructure and connectivity is really important for the countries and emerging markets. For instance, resilience to crisis as well as the connectivity as well as the infrastructure and access to target markets is a key part of the Georgia's value proposition. And because of the accelerated need on investments in digital services and industries, Georgia will answer those shifts in the future in the new normal. And of course, there is expected the strengthening the growth and areas of, for instance, digital commerce, in segments like telemedicine, as well as the automation, of course, and COVID-19 pandemic could prove to be a decisive turning point in that direction.
Fantastic. Ovais?
I would say, you know, when you invested 3 or 4 years ago, you know, every business talked about, you know, the analytics layer and the data and all that, and very few businesses actually ended up doing it. I mean, I remember investing in Kareem, and yes, it was a good exit, but to this day, I don't think they have a clue what my pattern of usage behavior is in Kareem, or do much to kind of exploit it. You know, I'm just some bloke who goes to the supermarket or whatever, and there's not much value I'm getting back from their understanding of that. But I think that's changing. And I think, you know, the analytics kind of data warehousing, data lake, and all that kind of stuff that you start talking about, I think is now becoming a lot more realized, because I just think the kind of data science aspects of e-commerce and so forth are getting a lot more advanced. So I think that's definitely happening. And any companies in that type of stack, I think, are quite compelling. I do a bit of work in Turkey, and you've got tremendous engineering, product, data science capability in countries like Turkey. That's one. I think enterprise solutions continue to be interesting insofar as solutions for different industry verticals. I think courier marketplaces, looking at a business right now which is almost like there's a business called Paxel in Indonesia, there's one called Parcely in the UK, there's one called Shiprocket in India, there's Shippo in the US, there's Stamps in the US, there's one here called Time Express in the GCC region. So that whole thing of disrupting logistics in terms of C2C and B2B courier, I think is also super interesting. Those would be the obvious, yeah. I mean, I think there's still kind of space for certain types of e-commerce. And certainly content platforms in education, edtech, health tech, and so on. But that gives you some kind of a picture. And markets like Saudi Arabia, historically more traditional, you're starting to see the emergence of some really niche plays there, like even secondhand car marketplaces, secondhand car parts marketplaces, for example. Huge industry developing here in terms of online car sales marketplaces, players like CarSwitch and Indigo and so forth, subscription based, car as a service type players. That's interesting as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening.
Fantastic.
So I guess most of the sectors are still quite interesting, right? And I think between Natia and Ovius, both of you already touched on those sectors. I would say it may be, what if we look on the opposite part, right? What are the sectors that we might not want to touch, right? I guess obviously the cross-border tourism and travel, it's still, in the question of, sort of like the unknown, when it's going to come back and how it's going to come back, in what shape and form, right? But I like to ask the panel, including Joseph as well, that apart from this sector, what would be the sector that you will put more cautions on?
I mean, good point. I mean, if I could jump in, I think caution, I think it's less about sector and more about the obvious watch-outs, like unit economics, the fundamentals around the path to profitability, the cash burn in the business, fixed cost. I mean, I think everybody has now, post the last 6-8 months, started to really, really look at some of these indicators more than perhaps they might have done in due diligence, for example. So, more than sector, the things that I tend to worry about are, unit economics or significantly bullish demand assumptions that are just not going to play out in terms of, right?
If I may jump in, right? This is such
Yeah.
a good point that is going to lead to interesting discussion, right? I'm with you that right now a lot of investor, I think most of the investor focus on the unit economics, profitability, and all that stuff. But I would say we do it this way because we are, because of the pandemic, investment dry out, this and that, right? What if, the pandemic stay in the throughout the next 6 to 12 months, right? What if investors get used to, talk to the entrepreneur online like this? What if we get used to invest without seeing or smelling, the entrepreneur, right? So if that's the case, investment dry powder would come back. And do you think, profitability will be less important? Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think I actually side advise on this. Travel, for example, is one we're taking a long-term view and actually quite bullish on. I think that it very much depends on the sector again, right? We have record valuations being recorded for some enterprise SaaS verticals in the US, right? Absolutely unprecedented valuation multiples happening. They're certainly not profitable by any means. And so I think again, I would take it from a sector by sector perspective, right? And I think where perhaps more work is going into than previously is really going a lot deeper into what that future of that industry is likely to look at, and I think being a lot more meticulous over that market scanning, if that makes sense. The unit economic point, I think, is one that just feeds into that, right? If the macro for the market is terrible, you know, the early profitability is still going to be a problem. So that's kind of how I think about it. Sorry if it like partially answers the question.
Yeah, I've got one other point actually. It's quite interesting. I mean, I was talking to a friend who's kind of Israeli American, and you know, he was talking. He lives in New York, and he was saying, you know, institutions in New York are both, you know, raising capital at dramatic rates virtually. Everyone in New York is raising capital by Zoom. I mean, I was talking to the CFO of Kitopi just now, who's raised capital for a round recently, completely virtually. So I've got an open question, which is, you know, when I worked in private equity, it was like you had to go and kick the tires. Unless you spent a week in market, meeting management, you know, smelling the nature of the business and the individuals and talking to vendors and talking to customers and just doing a little bit of street level rucksack stuff, you know, you would never make an investment decision without going there. The IC, at least in our fund, 2 members of the IC had to go and meet the founder and the team before you invested. I mean, you're now getting hundreds of millions of dollars of capital raised on Zoom. So I've got an open question, which is, I kind of look at that and go, wow, but then I look going, wow, that's kind of worrying. I mean, spending all that money without meeting somebody, I mean, it's kind of like buying a house without seeing the house. So I'd love to get other people's views on that.
I assume
so I'd actually like to chime in on that one. Oh, go ahead, Chia.
I was just going to make a comment. I assume you're not invested in the house marketplaces then.
No, I mean, it's like I'm
well,
interested
we're
in.
not.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been actually exploring that dimension of it, and because we are trying to help a lot of people fundraise as well. And what we're finding is that there's actually a trend towards borrowing trust. So in the absence of physically going out there, reading the body language, it's about do you actually know someone who is a past investor, and how much do you trust them? And so I think the investment world is evolving and accelerating the Kevin Bacon element of it in terms of how far apart are you from that. And I think it goes back to some certain things in terms of the assumptions of the business, right? If the business itself is fundamentally a large enough opportunity where it becomes worth the gamble, I think that becomes a much bigger issue. And to Nietzsche's point in terms of the earlier question, what are the changes that are happening? I think there is a change away from, and I think we've all seen it, growth over profitability. I think we're all finding the need to balance that out a little bit more so that things are much more sustainable. And then the other key issue of, besides sectors, what are the assumptions that we've always had as sacrosanct that actually turns out to be untrue, right? So like in the Philippines, the idea that you can bet on the Philippine retail market and that everybody will go to a mall. So if it's a mall-related commercial business, it's gonna make money no matter what, right? That the office space market in key cities will always have high demand, right? Go Starbucks forever. But when the world changes all at once, suddenly that's not true. Sorry, I didn't mean to kill the conversation in the panel I'm moderating.
Now, Joseph, I think that's a great point, right? I think one thing we've certainly done a lot more is I've had to tap my network a lot more aggressively to just do a lot more founder exec referrals, to the point that I'm sure my network hates me at this point. But that's certainly something that is given greater weight, given that we are not meeting the founders, right? So as you mentioned, previous investor checks. We like to do peer reference checks quite aggressively, and that has, I think, for us at least, been the norm, right? And so if I think one thing that we're now starting to see is if founders have a lot of peers who they're well known in the industry, they come with great references, it's a lot easier to back because of that. I think that specific feature is definitely, in our opinion, given more weight in the post-COVID world.
And then if I can just build on that, the other thing that I'm seeing is that there's a opening in terms of undervalued investments for the people that don't have the network but are delivering the numbers, right? And then it's really about the boldness of how much you can trust those numbers and how big your belief is in that underlying opportunity. Again, the balance of growth versus profitability. Do you believe that this space will survive in the next 3 to 6 months, or this space is capturing a new trend that's going to evolve? I think Ovais actually brought something great to the table where we're talking about not just looking at the analytical layer. I think one of the changes that I'm seeing emerging because of this pandemic is having a take on the human layer, right? How vital people are to the equation, because and how much people actually value relationships in the equation. I don't know how that's going to translate into people's spreadsheets and airtables, but I do think that that's going to be a bigger piece of it moving forward. I do have one last question, and we can go back to this topic, just if that's all right. And I think it picks up from what Nietzsche was saying, that this situation next 6 to 8 months has forced people to really look at a more local level. But at some point, the point of investing in a startup is that there will be expansion. And inevitably, you're hoping for a cross-border expansion. And people like emerging markets because the belief is that, a lot of emerging markets have a lot of commonalities. But in practice, what have you guys seen as the success factors or stumbling blocks that have actually helped or hindered startups that are trying to grow geographically or merge on a cross-border basis to tackle the same kind of problems?
May I comment on that part?
Please, Natia.
So I'm mostly dealing with the corporates, as mentioned, who are seeking for new location expansions. However, I think that as a result of ongoing situation, of course, there will be positive effects such as changes which could make, for instance, better management structures within the organizations, as well as forming more flexible workforces. And I think that investors likely will be about to devise the ways to kind of incorporate new resiliency metrics in their valuation models, and companies and investors also will need to rebalance their priorities and, for instance, to make additional resiliency measures as important part of their strategic thinking in terms of the ways of operation, as well as still cost plus efficiency, because world is into recession until everything gets back to the normal. And so I think that this is again important consideration for the businesses across the world, even it is a startup project or like expansion of new M&A project or greenfield projects done by
Fantastic,
corporates.
Natia. Nietzsche, last word for today. Always, Chia, care to pick up on the topic?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think, geographic expansion is an important dimension. For all the things I talked about in MENA and the GCC, trade barriers are there. If you're doing e-commerce export, I'm involved in a company in Turkey called Modernisa, which is a modest fashion e-commerce player. Exports to 130 countries, sounds great, but you know what? Try exporting to 130 countries. I mean, try navigating customs and excise in Jakarta, in Riyadh, and even in some European countries with increasing challenges around VAT refunds and stuff, where you sell the stuff, 40% returns, you'll get the goods back, good luck in doing anything with them, but more importantly, you'll never get the VAT back in a timely way. So, geographic expansion is one of those things where you've got to really understand the nitty-gritty of how you attack a market, and you've got to localize. I mean, most of the Asian markets that I've ever been involved in, Indonesia, unless you look local, you're not going to get very far in Indonesia if you look like a foreign player. You've got to look like local team, Jakarta, you've got to have all those elements in place. Ditto in Saudi Arabia. Increasingly, I don't think you can do anything in Saudi Arabia unless you look local Saudi. It's just a fact. They've had years and years of exporting capital, and they want people to bring value back. So, you know, there are nuances around geographic expansion that have to be understood above and beyond the purchasing power and the GDP per capita, and all the obvious numerical stuff is fine. But when it comes to executing, it can be very tough.
Fantastic. Chia, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that is quite attractive. We do have a couple of companies that are in multiple markets across Southeast Asia at a relatively early age, and they are doing quite well. So I think sometimes there are quite a lot of similar problems that can be solved, especially in the cross-border space. I think there's some very interesting things there. But I think the two things to bear in mind is A, how different each market really is. India and Indonesia versus Brazil, like it's just so different markets. It's crazy. And so I think there are always going to be some element of difficulty there. And so I think that's the first thing you want to consider. The second thing you want to consider is also disproportional weightage in geographies, right? In Southeast Asia, Indonesia is obviously the giant in the room, 40% of the digital economy across Southeast Asia, and so it becomes a little bit tricky to try to want to dominate multiple markets when there's one really big one that you could be dominating. And so I think those are some of the considerations. But that being said, I do see lots of opportunities because as you know, you mentioned, there are quite a lot of similar problems to be solved.
Thank you to all our panelists for joining us in today's session. I hope everyone was able to get new key information on how international investors are thinking in investing in emerging markets, especially now due to the pandemic, on how they're thinking of different strategies and different questions that they were planning to ask our different startups in the Philippines and in the Southeast Asia. I would like also to give a special thanks to Joseph for wonderfully moderating the discussion. That being said, I would like to continue now the Seedstars World Competition and have our next 4 startups pitch.
Next, we have Anna from Oh My Genie. So the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes to pitch. Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
I'm Anna Mitch Kessner, Chief Operating Genie and co-founder of OMG Oh My Genie. To start, I'd like to make a simple request. I know you did this already, so I just want you to think of that one thing that you wanted to do last weekend, but you were not able to because of lack of time. And
my answer is still sleep.
Yes. So truly, there's so little time, yet so much to do. And balancing work and personal life is one of the major causes of stress among working adults because one gets more prioritized over the other. And this leads to strained family relationships, inefficiencies at work, poor physical and mental health. So I feel very strongly about this because I really, really believe that there should be more to life than just working and grinding. And yet, somehow, there's so little time left to do the things that we love, and so little time left to spend on what matters most. And for me, this is with my family. We have 3 beautiful children, 2 young boys and 1 baby girl. And if there's one wish, if I could only have one wish, it would be more time to spend with my children before they grow up. So we took it upon ourselves to start solving this problem. Maybe we can give people more time. What chores can we take out from their daily routines and schedules? How can we do this? So this is why we created OMG. Oh My Genie redefines how we buy by making it more human. So OMG allows people to book their very own personal shopper to get them their needs and have them delivered safely to their homes so they can have more time to do what matters most. With OMG, busy moms like me, senior citizens who are at the most risk of getting the virus. Sari-sari store owners who do not have access to transports, and even big businesses who need to procure a wide variety of supplies can order all their needs in one single place. Now, unlike other online offerings who just robotically process orders in a yes, available, no, not available, just cancel this item from the order manner, with OMG, you are sure to get what you need. So if my brand of diaper is not available, my genie will try to source it from other partner stores or suggest the most appropriate replacement, just to make sure that my daughter does not does have diapers for the night. So it's really humans for humans. My genie gives me the feeling of calm, serenity, and security that my needs will be shopped according to how I would have shopped them myself. So truly, with OMG, my wish is my genie's command. And just this September, we had our largest partnership with SM Supermalls, the largest chain of malls here in the Philippines. And now our customers can get anything they want, not just their needs, but even their wants from their favorite stores like Uniqlo or Miniso or Forever 21. So we have raised $85,000 to get to where we are right now. And we have significantly created traction and generated revenue to more than $200,000 through commissions, sales, convenience fees, and markups on goods. Additionally, we have built a network of providers, major supermarkets, big brands like P&G and Nestle and other major suppliers. Likewise, on the consumer side, we have strategic partnerships with residences, big BPOs, and business clients where we supply their pantry needs, their employee program needs, and even the personal groceries of their employees. So we have outlined our plans and targets for the next 5 years, and we are actively seeking investments to support our growth plan. So how will a $500,000 investment affect the impact of the 2.5 billion addressable market? It will give us 12 months runway. So to accelerate the development of our technology stack, it will give us the ability to expand to the other parts of the country, also adding more individual customers and sari-sari stores.
Sorry, Anna.
Ultimately, yes.
Sorry, Anna, I need to stop. I know you're in the middle of a slide. I'm really sorry for that. We run out of time for the presentation. That's why I need to stop you here. But I leave the floor now to the jury so they will be able to ask further questions and finalize the presentation in case. So please, jurors, anyone that wants to step in.
Okay. I'll give my seat to Carl for question and answer.
Thanks so much for the presentation. I have a few questions regarding the logistics of how the platform works. So maybe that's also something you would have mentioned in the next few slides. But in general, how does the integration with the store system work? So how do you know what's actually in those stores? And also, how does the communication between me and the genie then work? So in case the genie goes to the store and something is not available, do they call me or do they message me on the platform? So how is the interaction with this person?
Okay. Hello, Doris. They have around 400 to 700 merchants in the store who they want to activate. With our limited resources, we have to onboard them slowly, one store at a time. And then they actually go through 2 phases. when their inventories or SKUs aren't yet ready yet, um, we on the system you can book a genie, and then you enter your requests. So there's a catalog. It's a catalog style. It's a request type order compared to the add to cart order that we are used to in other online stores. Okay, so that's phase one. That's how we get orders. Uh, but when they're ready, because there is some time for B2B acquisition, they we eventually get their SKUs and enter them into the system, where the customer can choose like add to cart type style of shopping. Okay. Then the customer places the order, schedules the time with the genie, and then on shopping day, the genie actually contacts them in the morning to remind them that they will be contacting the customer in the middle of the day to uh, make sure they are there for confirm the specific items and if we need to get replacements.
Okay, thank you so much. How
You're
does
welcome. Thank
how
you.
does the payment work? So do I only pay what's in my shopping cart at the end after the transaction is done and the genie hands me the bag and the invoice, or do I pay in advance and get a refund in case something is not available?
Right. So when we all have a prepayment process, come the time when previously we were doing COD, but when the pandemic struck, we had a very strict policy on just doing prepayment through digital payment. So it's like either bank-to-bank system, e-wallets, or fund transfers. And in the event that the item is not available, it would either be we provide you a credit that you can use on your next shopping service or a refund that we can process also. But most of the time, they would prefer to have it as a credit so they can just use on their next purchase. And also, if in case the price is a little higher than the usual, you will then be requested to provide an additional payment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, so the genies, are they considered employees under the company, or are they freelancers, contractors?
But we're looking at a program where we can have a considerable format for a contract-based model. So we are trying to look into this because we understand that there's going to be a lot of challenges when come the time when if you will just be purely contract based, because the value and differentiation that we really are providing to the service is that we really train our genies very well. And at least at the moment, we believe that having them employed will provide more benefit for our customers and for the company.
Okay. Follow-up question, because if they're employed, how do you guys currently handle, let's say, the two sides of the spectrum where there's a surge in usage, and then also when there is no usage?
Right. For the we actually have delivery slots. In the beginning, there was so much demand for our service that we weren't able to accommodate all the requests. So we can actually block the delivery slots or just set the number of slots we can accommodate, and then on the next week we can continue getting more people on board, more genies, more shoppers. But basically, we're analyzing the trends week by week. If we need to add more genies to a certain location, because there might be a trend of more orders in that location.
Yes,
Okay.
and with our existing partnership, there's a process where we have a level of commitment from the team, from the in-house of our providers, that they pre-assemble the items. So 90 to 100% of the products are already pre-done for us. And the
Mm,
genie is just going to be at the last end part of facilitating if there are replacement that needs to be done, or if there are some other tweaks that needs to be done. So the genie also oversees the entire operation at their level, while addressing multiple customers at one time. So
okay.
yeah, if they are able to multiply themselves in that
Yeah,
way.
and
And if I may also add, that was a problem we were trying to solve in the beginning when the demand was so high. So the resources were low and the demand was high. So we had to create systems and put them in place to make sure there is productivity per genie. In comparison to the competition on the floor, let's say a 50 order day for that location, our competition usually takes around 10 or more people to fulfill those orders. We have created the system to make it around 5 people. Only 5 people are needed to fulfill. So it took us about a month to really tweak the system and then flag if the genie was trailing behind. But eventually it worked out. We have very limited resources as a startup, and we have to make sure that we have optimized our processes.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Carl and Anna and Enrique, for your time in the presentation. Pleasure having you here. Thanks again. Good luck. Thank you so much, Edwina, from Rich52 for joining us today. So you have 5 minutes to pitch. The floor is yours. Start whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Giovanni. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone at the Seedstars World Manila team. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us pitch. My name is Edwina, and I'm leading the business development and partnerships side of things at Reach52. So before I dive into how we're building a health system for anywhere on Earth, I wanted to paint a picture of the scale of the problem that we're trying to tackle. So right now, 52% globally, and that's around 3.7 billion people, are unable to access primary healthcare services. So just imagine a patient needing to travel around 3 hours to the nearest clinic or hospital for treatment, and when they get there, they might not even be able to pay for the treatment or products necessary for recovery. And that's what we want to solve, because many of our beneficiaries have stories like that. Right now, around 100 million people are being pushed into poverty annually from rising out-of-pocket costs. For example, in Philippines, there's an 8.7% year-on-year growth in the household health expenditure. So just in a nutshell, Reach52 is a health tech company. And what we do is we provide health services through upskilling local community members, women on the ground. We manage a marketplace of essential health products and services, and we built a platform integrating all the key stakeholders to make this entire thing possible. So we talk a lot about this access to health issues, and how we look at solving it. We think of it in terms of 3 A's: awareness, availability, and affordability. So for awareness, we do work with the local community members and women. We upskill them, provide them with our technology. They go door to door to let them know about our solution, and they collect data from the residents, and they help run events like hepatitis B screening, and they help to manage the delivery of the essential products within these villages. So training a community member to serve their community. As for growth partners, we work with trusted NGOs who already have a big pool of beneficiaries under them. And when we collaborate with them, these beneficiaries can tap on our services as well. To solve for availability and affordability, that's when we start working with the private sector. So we do have a number of farmer, consumer health, and insurer partnerships. And we help to open new channels into these emerging markets for them. And in return, they provide us with affordable products that we can deliver to these residents. We do collaborate with distributors on the ground to make this possible. So when we work with the logistics partners, we help to manage the last mile delivery into these remote villages. Lastly, we work with the government in each of our communities so that from the data we collect, we can look at where the gaps are in these villages and co-create a targeted program and run rural health clinics with the government. Ultimately, we do want to drive SDG 3, 5, and 8, and all of this will be done through our suite of in-house built technology. So I'll just take you through our tech really quickly. Our Access and Insights are an app and a platform, and this is what the local women go door to door and collect, like a whole suite of data for us to analyze. The Reach52 Insights provides the government as well as our private sector partners with a dashboard that allows us and them to identify where the needs lie, and we co-create a program with them. our marketplace and logistics platform is basically like an e-commerce platform if you think about it, but we onboard affordable products from our partners and we manage the logistics side of things, tracking the product from the pharmacy to the distributor to the household. And lastly, we integrate and work very closely with Facebook, which has a deep penetration in Philippines, and we build chatbots together with them to raise the health awareness within our residents. From these technology, it helps to enable our revenue channel. So we sell data and insights. We charge an implementation fee based on the targeted programs that we run, and we charge a small delivery and commission on the products that we sell. So how we think about our solution, we do want to integrate the different components into this health journey into one platform. So we do the research for our partners, we implement the programs, we deliver the commodities, and we manage the logistics. One of the reasons why we came out with this is that we see that other providers are providing a very small component of all these big supply chain, and it's very fragmented. So what we hope to do is to be the end-to-end solution for partners, not only for them to access emerging markets, but for our patients to have a seamless progress into accessing health. So just very quickly, these are just some of the partners that we work with. For example, we work with Philips to deliver ultrasound in the remote villages at 40% of the cost without them having to travel 5 hours to the nearest hospital. We are working with over 20 global partners. We have over 2 million users, over 1,000 communities, and we have over 750 products and services. So an external evaluation was done, and what it saw was that every $1 invested in V52, we save $2.10 for the residents. So just final 20 seconds here. This is our growth summary. We raised our first round in 2019 after launching in Philippines and Cambodia. We were going to raise Series A this year, but because of COVID, we pushed it until next year, when we're also going to launch in Indonesia and Myanmar. With Series A, we want to enhance our solution and scale aggressively. On the right, you can see some of the things we have with our partners for the tech roadmap. And by 2030, we hope to connect 250 million people to essential health products and services. Thank you very much for your time and support.
Thank you, Edwina. Thank you so much for the presentation. All right, so any of the jury that wants to start asking questions about Reach 52, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, Edwina. I think it's a great presentation, excellent timing. Give us some idea about the team.
Sure. Thanks so much for your feedback. So for our team, our management team, they do have background in finance. They also have background in the supply chain side, and they have background working in both emerging markets as well as developed countries. So for example, our founder, he's ex-Capgemini and Novartis. He also worked in the rural villages in India for a while, and he has experience managing the entire access to healthcare. Our COO has experience running Fullerton Health in Singapore, so she also understands what is required in terms of making healthcare accessible to these remote villages. So I hope that's clear.
Yeah. How many full-time committed people in the team?
We have around slightly north of 40, I believe 42 in our team right now. So we're headquartered in Singapore, and we do have offices in Philippines, India, and Cambodia where we have operations, and we also have a team in London.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwina, for your presentation. I have a question regarding the community members you work with. So I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on how you identify those people on the ground and how the data collection then actively works. So whether also the people in those areas are willing to share the data and how the data is handled.
Yeah, sure, happy to. So I think maybe I'll just take you through how we launch and then how we identify these community members. So there are two different types of community members we work with. So predominantly 98% of our field force are women because we want to encourage gender equality and give them opportunity. So these women, they will be the ones that we equip with our app. They do have to have a certain level of literacy because they need to be able to use our app, and they go door to door to collect the data, and they help to organize the health events. In terms of the local health resources like the community health workers, we help to upskill them. So this could be part of a targeted program with a partner. So for example, we're working with Johnson & Johnson in Philippines to screen and train 1,000+ health workers using our technology. So we want to upskill and strengthen the local health resources. And these are the health workers that will be running the actual screening event. The women will be going around helping to organize it. So in terms of the data that they collect, before we launch in any community, we do get the buy-in from the local mayors and the government, so that we talk to them first, we get their partnership, so that when we go door to door, we can at least say we're endorsed by them, because yeah, if not, they wouldn't give us the data otherwise. So everything is quite compliant with the local regulations.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think a final question from my side would be on the partnership and monetization aspect. So how do you monetize, and do you consider governments or ODAs and funders as your main partners?
So no, that's a good question. So how we monetize? So right now, a bulk of our revenues, they do come from running the programs. So the programs, this standard contract size will be around 100 to 200K. So that's the size of our programs typically. And it could range from patient screening, like with Gilead, we're doing the hepatitis B, or it could range to the health worker training that I mentioned previously. With the government and how we see our partnerships with them. So with regards to that Gilead program, we managed to talk to the government to co-pay. So they would help to pay for a part of this program, and therefore strengthening the local health systems. We have won quite a number of grants, but they wouldn't make the bulk of our revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doris.
Hi, Edwina, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I just wanted to ask, how has COVID and quarantines affected your operations in the different areas, and how do you see that affecting your operations moving forward, even post-pandemic?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, happy to share. So I think just firstly with COVID, that meant that a lot of these community members that we empower, like our field force, right, they aren't able to go door to door to collect these data or run the events. So that was definitely a big dent in the sense of our revenue, because our marketplace sales also dropped. They couldn't do the delivery and things like that. In terms of scaling, we really wanted to scale aggressively this year, as well as raise our Series A. But we still managed to launch in India in September, but we had to do the hiring remotely. Whereas like with the other countries, the management team will travel to the new site and they'll do the hiring there. So that's how we managed to overcome the scaling aspect. And with regards to like some of our operations being halted, we did work with Save the Children as another form of revenue generation, who also had their operations halted, but they needed a way to digitize their operations. So we were able to work with them and provide them with our tools to let them continue their operations and also give us revenue. So moving forward, I think from the learnings of this, we would probably be focusing a lot on tech. So on our tech roadmap, we really want to enhance our solution, because we do see that there is a need in case this pandemic lasts like indefinitely. So we are building a offline first real-time health worker training tool, and it also allows for like symptom checking to happen in real time for the patients. With regards to the chatbot, that means that the patient chatbot will be able to identify the risk factors that they currently suffer from. So one of the things that we've done for COVID is that we built a COVID chatbot that's available to anyone. So that's actually on our Facebook. And patients can identify their symptoms and see whether they need to see a doctor and whether the symptoms tie into the COVID-19 symptoms. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Archie.
Thank you so much, Edwina. Thank you for the presentation and for answering all these questions. It was a pleasure having you here today. So good luck with everything. We'll be in touch very soon. Welcome you on this online stage. So Cass is representing Workbin, one other startup pitching today at this Manila Seedstars event. So the floor is yours, Kat. You have 5 minutes. Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
My name is Cass. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Workbean. Workbean is building the largest platform of company cultures in Asia Pacific. In 2018, I joined my dream company and became the youngest regional account manager in the team. It was an opportunity that I couldn't believe I got. The job was amazing, the perks were insane, and I was hitting my targets. But a few months into the role, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. I was unhappy. The tough love, win at all costs, intense culture was just not for me. So I obsessively researched belongingness at work and realized that employees that are culturally aligned with their organizations are 50% less costly to hire, 36% more productive, and 3 times less likely to leave. And that was what catapulted me to start WorkBeam. So in a candidate-driven market where digital workers are difficult to hire, the biggest question employers need to answer is, why should I work for you? Companies with low transparency, low employer brand equity, and low human relatability will struggle to get the best talent. And this is because the landscape of job search is changing. To attract the next generation of digital talent, compensation comes only second to growth opportunities, work-life integration, and mission-driven work. So this is exactly what WorkBeam wants to amplify for the next generation of digital workers. Globally, companies spend an average of $130,000 on employer branding, 40% of which is allocated to online presence and brand communication, making this a $26 billion industry. Now, what WorkBeam does is we help companies prepare for the future of talent attraction by using their culture as a hiring advantage. And we do this by identifying their culture archetypes through our in-house assessment, communicating it using their easy to create culture pages, promoting their company to people who are highly likely to consider applying, and measuring its success to know what strategy works best. WorkBeam is an employer branding partner that prepares organizations for the next 10 years. So we launched WorkBeam right smack in the middle of a pandemic. Yet we have been entrusted by respected brands like Canva, Atlassian, Lalamove, and JTI to deliver their employer branding message to the right people at this time. In our current business model, we charge an annual subscription fee for every culture page at a minimum of $2,000 a year. As challenging as it is, we will close 2020 with over $15,000 in annual subscription fees. Pilots of our new paid features are now being negotiated too. With over 100 warm leads on our pipeline, everyone we've spoken to, our pipeline for Q1 HR budget on 2021 is already set as well. So we're confident in closing out next year at a minimum of $300,000 in ARR. On top of this, we've also attracted 100,000 culture page visitors and 14,000 social media followers in just 8 months without spending more than $2,000 on marketing. In Southeast Asia, we are going up against 2 other players in this space, but by the first half of 2021, we expect to have more companies than these 2 combined. This is because of our focus on culture, scalability, and digital talent. WorkBeam has a unique opportunity to be at the cusp of the emerging trend in the region. Southeast Asia only represents 3% of over 500,000 employer branding practitioners worldwide. And as HR evolves to contribute strategically to digital transformation, we expect to see an explosion of employer branding managers in Southeast Asia over the next decade. WorkBeam is built by a very diverse team of 6 with strong execution experience in both corporate and startups. Our shared purpose of promoting transparency through culture building makes us the best team to bring our mission to life. And our collective experiences will guide us in helping job seekers find work in cultures where they belong. So we're raising $500,000 to fuel our growth and reach 5 million in ARR by 2022, as well as expand in other markets where our clients are present, such as Indonesia and Australia. We're also looking for community leaders and channel partners that can help us advance our mission and elevate career search for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cass, for the presentation. So
Yeah.
I leave the floor now to the jury for the Q&A.
Okay, I'll start off. Hi, Cass.
Hello.
So, my understanding is that everything is housed on your platform.
Yes.
And if I was an employer, no, sorry, let me rephrase it. If I was a company, if I was one of your clients, all of my communication is done on your platform, right? But then how do,
In what way? Sorry.
like you said, there's a company profile page, is that correct?
Yes.
And that there's a culture page, and then so how do I get people to see that? Is it connect, like, is there any integration with my social media accounts? Is there integration with my website? And when I am looking for people, and let's say those people go to your page and they are interested, do they apply directly on your site and then you lead them towards us? Is it like do you act like a LinkedIn plus monster, I guess? Is that how it works, or?
Okay, I guess to answer the first question, we there's 3 ways where we help companies sort of get people to look at the culture page. One is they've embedded us into their recruitment process, meaning when people are up for interviews, one of the biggest challenges we saw that our partner companies had was that, especially for Atlassian, which is very surprising, is that when they talk about Atlassian, people don't know who they are in the Philippines. They're like, what is that? So one of the things that I actually do is get them to read up on a culture deck of some sort. But what happens is the content that's contained in there is not localized. It's still all about the Australian culture or the San Francisco culture. So we came in and we told them, embed us in your interview process, have the people look at your culture page, and let's see if the conversation will shift. 8 months into the whole thing, the conversation shifted. They're actually one of the top 3 performing pages on Workbean right now. So that's the first use case that they've used Workbean for. Second is an example of that will be Lalamove. Again, we support their job postings on different portals that they have. So for Lalamove, what they do, whenever they post something on their job sites, there's always like a line there saying that if you want to check out our culture, go to Workbean. So we've now become their culture showcase partner. The third one that we're looking into, and that's something that is currently in development, is that we are going to integrate with ATSs that these companies are using so that the whole process is seamless. So those are the 3 things where we're seeing ourselves scale.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Cass.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's an area which is rapidly growing. I'm somewhat familiar in this environment because I do a lot of digital transformation work, and obviously culture is a key element there, which you have pinpointed. So in that respect, I'm kind of raising in my mind while I'm listening to you 2 questions. The first question is, I think in many companies, especially in emerging markets, culture is not that tangible. You know, you can't put your hands on it. Therefore, to what extent your clients have a kind of worked on and highly visible cultural elements, and to what extent you have to work with them to bring it up, because your mechanics, your online mechanics is clear. You know, once you can define the culture and put it online, the rest of the mechanics we know in the digital world. What is your strength? What is your position in terms of especially emerging market companies where the cultural element is very, very vague in most cases?
Yes. That is a very fantastic question. Thank you so much. And it's very timely as well. We were lucky with our first few pilots because they sort of understood what culture they were going for, sort of what culture they want to push out. So it was a bit easier for us to work with them in terms of the assessment. But one of the things that we realized right now, as we started to work with smaller startups that are starting to break into this whole digital space, is that they actually look to us to help them figure out what their culture is. So they actually are clamoring to define a culture that they know in their minds, but not on paper. So what we're trying to do here, and this is why we're raising funds, is because we've done the initial legwork of helping them understand their brand personality, borrowing from marketing concepts. But we wanna beef it up by adding more psychometric measures to help them realize what they are. And so our goal is actually to come up with culture archetypes that when our partner companies take our assessment, there's an archetype that fits into that. Think of it as an MBTI, but for companies. So that's something that we want to work on to help smaller companies who we know are clamoring to figure out what their culture is, really put it into this archetype. This is who we are. And we don't believe in good or bad cultures. We just believe that there are multiple cultures in the workplace. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and maybe one feedback there is you may find out that especially large companies are struggling to attract talent. Therefore, at the beginning, large companies may be more attractive for you.
It goes both ways. So it was actually very interesting that JTI came to us and gave us 3 of their branches in the Philippines because they wanted to reach to the Gen Z. So I think they've already started to realize that, of course, the next wave of hiring is the Gen Zs and the younger millennials, and they need to speak their language. So they tapped us to identify their culture and use that language to speak to their next generation hires. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Cass. Thanks so much for the presentation. A question I had was, what is kind of your long-term vision with this? So do you imagine, if all goes well and you can scale this up super fast? Me, for example, if I look for a new job, is this the first page I should go to, or kind of what steps do you see in the process?
The big goal that we were looking at when we started this, we were heavily inspired by Airbnb, in the sense that when you go to Airbnb, you scrutinize, the entire place before you book that room. So we thought, when looking for a job, you're here and you're committed in here for a very long time. That's why we put in our mission that we wanted to create the largest company culture platform or directory in Asia, because we think that there's a lot of MNCs here, but local Asian talents are underrepresented in terms of the collaterals and things like that. So the big goal that we want is for people, when they start looking for jobs in companies, and this is already happening, they Google cultures, they Google, all the dirt about the company that they're going for. But we want to be that destination for them to get all of the company culture, tech stack, all of the information you could ever want to get in a company to be in this place. Hence, the mission that we put in place.
Thank you. And do you imagine for this, do you want to be solely focused on culture, or do you imagine then also at a later stage maybe moving into salary and other benefits and just like being a full circle company, or do you specifically stay within culture?
We are not closing our doors into looking at other services when we grow, because we cannot just shut our doors to that. And one of the, so we're part of Workplace Accelerator now. They're focused on HR tech acceleration in Southeast Asia. We've had a very, very good advice from GGV's managing director. And he was saying that for us to become a market leader in this space, we need to go full circle. Not now, but sometime in the future. And that's something that we're thinking of. But what we really want to do now is to remain laser focused on the fact that our main differentiation right now is culture. And we want to really stay on track on that for now.
Okay, thank you so much. And my final question is actually the funding. What would you use it for, and how would you scale the business?
All right, so there's 3 things that we're looking at. In this type of business, we want to create a SaaS business. We're already seeing sort of like a semblance of product market fit in terms of people saying yes to our subscription basis fees. We really want to use the money for 3 things. One is for us to really do a lot of our marketing and growth. At the end of the day, we're looking at it as a 2-sided business. We need supply and demand, and it requires a lot of marketing and customer success and growth to make it grow. That's one. We want about 40% of that to go into that. Another 40% is to make the product very much robust, because now we're beefing it up with psychometric assessments. We're going to get the values, personalities of the users in the platform, so we can match companies and digital talents together. So 40% of that will also go to product development. And the 20%, of course, we need to keep operations up. We need to keep our own people happy. So that's something that we're going to put the rest of the 20% into.
Thanks a lot to the 7 startups for their pitching and for answering all the questions from our jury. Now that we've seen all the selected entrepreneurs pitch their solutions, it is time for the jury to discuss and eventually select the one startup that will advance to the regional phase of the competition. So let's hear what Doris, Arti, and Typhoon have to say about the 7 finalists of Seedstars Manila.
So the first company we have seen today was Twala. What I did really like about the solution is that if it is really true that they are the only provider currently that are able to provide this technology, that they are in talks with the government and they ensure that this is legal and that they're the only service provider to currently do this, I think they have a great advantage in the market. The only thing I'm currently a little bit worried about is the fact that he mentioned that they still have to educate the customers themselves, so that they even have to do education for the lawyers they are working with. And I'm a bit concerned about the timeliness and the resource intensity of this education process.
That's actually a great point, Doris, and that's actually almost exactly what I wrote down, where I think their biggest barrier is going to be education, educating both the client side and the customer side, because I guess in the country today, the government hasn't really talked about these things. They haven't talked about digital signatures or digital contracts, and even cryptocurrency, while on the tech side of things is much adopted, on the regulation side of things it isn't. And them using crypto technology or blockchain technology, blockchain technology makes it even harder. So I think that's going to be a very big issue in terms of scaling and in terms of adoption, unless the government decides to suddenly educate the public that, okay, we have a problem with signatures, and this is one solution and we endorse it. And the justice system, the local governments, the local courts, we all recognize this, and anything like it, then maybe adoption could be much faster, education be much faster. But outside of that, you're right, they're going to spend money. But I do like that the solution is very novel, it's new, it's a great way, it's a perfect use for blockchain, not like some of those startups that are kind of forcing the issue. This actually makes it makes really good use of transparency and real use of the blockchain. So for me, it's quite relevant and it's a strong product.
I think I'm on the same frequency, really, with both of you, in the sense that the topic as such, I think, is a very promising and a topic which has a lot of potential for growth, especially after this lockdown experience, because people have to authorize and wet sign a lot of documents working from home. And it looks like after the pandemic, the remote working will continue to some extent. So this is a need which is going to grow all over the world. So in that sense, I think they are targeting the right topic. But the two concerns I had is similar to RT, in the sense that to what extent there is maturity in the market that would pull this solution, versus they with limited resources and time have to push the solution into a market which is not ready for it yet. You know, usage-wise, legal structure-wise, whatever. And then they burn rocket fuel trying to educate people, right? And the third point attached to that for me was they have no traction record so far. I mean, if I was to see some traction record, that would kind of persuade me a little bit. But right now, that education process is a big question mark, and there is no traction record.
Perfect, thank you guys. Any quick feedback on Tangere?
The key element is obviously speed, a reduction of cost, and also being accurate, right? So when you bring these three elements together, to what comes to my mind is execution, execution, execution. That's what I would look at. So topic is great. I think they're on the right path, but I would like to see them to be much more fine-tuned, if you like, to bring out this execution element. So when I look at the number of customers and how much revenue they are making, I like this company, but early days. Still, they have to do some proving on the ground, because the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yeah, I think for me, what I really liked about them was that they are tracking the different data points of their community. So they know by gender and by age who's part of the community, so they can do very targeted campaigns. But I'm on the downside, I'm still a bit concerned, which is also what I raised during the Q&A. Their target group is largely young and tech savvy. And I'm still a bit worried about whether they can incentivize people from other age groups to actively join and then stay active on the platform. Yeah. I mean, I think it works very well if you're, for example, you're a consumer brand or you're a brand that is focused on Gen Z or millennials, and you just want to get insights into their behaviors and their attitudes. I think that is working very well. I don't know for sure, as you mentioned, election results, like how realistic the picture would be if you conduct a survey on the elections at the moment.
Agree. And I think that's my biggest point of concern, where I do believe that the incentive model helps in getting people to be more active and more engaged. But I really do question the accuracy of the results, because to me, it kind of sounds like the 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 economy of buying Facebook likes or buying post likes and Instagram followers. It's kind of in the same, to me at least, my opinion is it's like in the same space where these people are really motivated to perform an action, but not to perform an action of high quality, if that makes sense. So rather than give good answers to the survey, I want to churn out as much surveys as I can so that I could receive the incentive. And as a client, that makes me question the quality of the responses that are given to me, or the analytics and the analysis and the data. And I think that scaling that makes it even worse, because the and as a customer, being given that data and making decisions based on that data, if inaccurate, will be very costly for me. And that's something, that's a risk that I'm not sure if I'm willing to take. But at the same time, I'm also thinking other surveys probably have this problem as well. Maybe less because of there's no incentive. I really don't know. And if they're the experts, then I just hope that they figure out a way to check and balance and to be able to help us confirm that the results are actually accurate and not skewed.
I think it's a good supplementary for big companies, though, because they were saying the target group is SMEs, and for an SME, the $2,000 for a survey
is big,
quite a big chunk of money as well.
And then something that you're not sure you're right, and then you make decisions based on that, you lose more money. It's a little scary. So
yeah.
All right.
Should we move on to the?
Yeah, please. Let's meet.
I think it's I've heard their story evolve for quite a while, and I still feel that it's a great story in the sense that it's very relevant. Also because of the number of, so they started out because of the number of overseas foreign workers that the Philippines has all over the world. And it's very unfortunate that a large chunk of them are in the Middle East. And in the Middle East, unfortunately, a lot of them are mistreated and abused, especially the women. And that is, but they don't have access to legal services. And that's how they started, because they wanted to be able to help those people overseas in a digital way where it would be cost efficient for them. And now they've started to grow, and then they've grown outside of just focusing on foreign and also but local as well. So it's very relevant. It's a big problem. I think it's a big problem that I am encouraging them to solve. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure, let's say, how the industry will react. Like the legal system is sort of like a massive fixed structure, and I don't know how they will react to something like this. Doesn't I have a feeling maybe not too well, and I think that um they're trying to do too many things. Like he said something like, we've launched 2 things, and then we're gonna launch another 4, and then we're gonna launch another 12. I'm like, whoa, okay. It's like,
Like I said, they have too much on their plate.
yes, exactly. And they've, I think, lost focus from the time when I first saw them, when they said that they want to solve a specific problem. Overseas Filipinos who have trouble accessing legal services. And maybe that might be the problem, or maybe that may be the issue. For me, at least. It doesn't resonate with me anymore, unfortunately. Um, but I hope they still focus on what they initially started out with. And but for now, I have a problem seeing how they will scale for those 2 things. Too many things, doing too many things, and they're trying to make things difficult, I guess, for this massive structure that is the legal system.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting that you mentioned that, Archie, because it didn't really come about of what kind of legal issues that they're trying to solve, because that was something I was thinking, and actually it just came to me now. But like, legal is such a big topic, and you can have lawyers specialized in family, business, it can be a defense lawyer,
maritime,
all sorts of legal issues. So how do you ensure that they're, like, you need to have all those different sections covered? Because as far as I understood now, they're not really skimming it down to a specific area or specific, it's like every single legal issue can be covered here. And I'm not really sure if that's coming back to quality aspects, if that's really working in the form right now.
Do you guys have to say about MedHive?
I really like the team and the background, as well as the connectedness of the team. So having a founder that has hospitals and that understands the kind of logistical processes and the red tape behind these is super valuable. And also to have the support, I think it was either at a sort of supporting function, but somebody from the government as well. So to bring those different stakeholders and combine them into one kind of platform, I think that is a great value that they're creating.
I agree. I mean, it's a solid project to my mind. Especially, they indicated that they have the relevant connections, the experience, the operational capability on the ground. So I think it's a solid project. All right, it's good. I would classify them even great. But would I classify them fantastic? Probably not. It's a good business that will grow. And obviously, with this corona situation right now, there is a lot of attention on medtech related activities, both in terms of interest from the entrepreneurs, but also in terms of need from the market. So it's good business, solid business. It should be well executed.
Yeah, I also like that they first and foremost focus on the fast consumer goods, so just like smaller equipment and not large machinery, which is something, of course, if things work out and they can scale, is a market that they could potentially move into. But I'm very happy to see some focused effort at the beginning to test out the market.
Up next, Oh My Genie, the Genie personal shopper startup. So for me, I think this got relevant very fast. because of the COVID and quarantine. And if you're not familiar, this team is actually based out of Cebu, which is not Metro Manila, and it's a province in the more towards the Visayas or the middle of the country, where the um, the quarantines are much stricter because the numbers are higher. It's actually quite worse there. And so I could see that they suddenly had this need. They suddenly had this establishments that also wanted to still, create commerce, and weren't prepared for it. And this was a good middle ground. But my concern is that the way they've modeled it or structured it right now for me is not scalable, which is why my first question was, are these guys employees? And they said yes. I was like, oops, okay, that's a red flag for me. Um, and because there's actually less problems if they weren't employees, but there still are problems. So they've actually
Flexibility.
yes, exactly. And that is something that concerns me. And then the other would be that post pandemic, post quarantine, when things go back to normal, I don't see anything in their model right now that would allow them the longevity or the sustainability to create this service. I mean, I think I'm not sure if they were just not able to present or explain it properly, but I think it's more of the intimate experience, not like the disconnected e-commerce. I'll add to cart and I'll just wait till it arrives. The more like I really have someone to talk to who will tell me and maybe tell me, hey, that the red shoes weren't available, but I think this pink ones will really look good. I don't know. If that was the case, then maybe, but right now I didn't see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I really appreciated your question on the employees as well, because that was something I was asking myself too. Because I think in the end they will likely have to switch to a model that's similar to Uber, that's a little bit more scalable, where you have a pool of people that you can tap on demand. Because as they said, I mean, of course they were just starting up, but if it takes them a week to find people who can actually execute those orders, they might have lost customers in the meantime already. And besides that, I think what I see as their target customer group, I don't think they have specified like any specific group that they want to target, but what I can see, for example, is my grandma. So for my grandma, e-commerce site is not personal enough. So she would not shop because she would miss this human experience. So for her, this kind of step in between that allows her to still, especially in those current challenging times, to still stay at home, to be safe, but still have this human interaction with somebody during the process. This is a great fit. I don't necessarily see this as a good fit for somebody like me, for example. If I want to shop online, I want to place my order and be done. And I don't want anyone to call me and check, hey, they don't have this salad, can I buy another one? All right, shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, please.
So reach 52. Yeah, go ahead.
I do go ahead.
I think that again, medtech, so very relevant. I think that I love that it's very impactful. I love that it's very they're doing something very significant in the world. But to me, and really unfortunately, they are very people centric, meaning a lot of what they do is very heavy on people. And because of COVID and quarantine, I'm just really questioning what's happening now. I mean, how are you guys able to achieve what you guys are wanted to achieve without having all these people working and
In
not
the field.
getting around in the field and all of these things and these events, because events was a very big thing for them. That's how they get users, that's how they distribute. So my concern was, how are you adjusting or how are you transitioning? And when I asked that question to them, I didn't feel strong about the answer. I would have wanted to see a stronger use of technology and maybe a stronger adjustment towards the new norm, because this isn't going to change. I think if ever we go back to normal, it's still not going to be the same. So I would have wanted to see how they were going to adjust. So I'm hopeful, but right now I didn't quite see it in their presentation.
You know, I like them. I like them for the reason that in a way they to me they are a kind of a Seedstars project. Why? Because you know, developing environments, there is a social need, health in underprivileged societies. If they can manage to make money out of it, even better. Plus, if they can manage to pull in the resources of international organizations like UNICEF, that would make sense. All right. So the ingredients are there. The ingredients are there. And I specifically raised the point of UNICEF because I did work with UNICEF in terms of how they can utilize technology for helping children in developing or you know, backwards economies. So you'll be surprised that they have a huge need on the one hand, and at the same time, interestingly enough, they have a huge amount of money, but they are not able to utilize it in the right way. So they need intermediaries, they need technologies which would get this thing rolling, right? So in that sense, perhaps in the short term, like Arti, you said, their mobility is restricted, therefore their field effectiveness can be questioned, okay? But if we assume that you know, this world health situation in developing markets is not disappearing overnight.
From the Seedstars perspective, I think thematically it's very interesting. It's a very interesting problem they're trying to solve. And I love that they combine impact with a monetary benefit as well, because this is something we see a lot with startups that really care about people and their social impact, but then don't really monetize, or they feel bad monetizing, or having business models that actually don't even allow them to properly monetize at all. So I'm very happy to see that they have put some thought into this. But also, again, as you said, they are in the business since 2016, if I remember correctly. So they already had a lot of time to focus on business modeling and monetization as well. So I'm not sure whether this stage is the right fit for us. All right, last one, Workbeam. What are you guys' thoughts?
Personally, I liked that project. Like I commented during the presentation, because I work with mature companies, large companies, but I also work with the startups as well. But I see the burning need more on the large company side, because in the last 4 or 5 years, even multinationals are having problem attracting young talent, because the young talent doesn't want anymore to work in a 9-to-5 boxed environment. All right, so they're trying to reposition their corporate culture. They're trying to make their environment more attractive to young talent. Otherwise, young talent wants to do something in the entrepreneurial area. So there is a huge need here. So that's in that sense, it's interesting for me. I like the project. I'm sure they have more potential in the future. But in terms of execution and in terms of timing, it's still early days to see how they make progress.
I like it too. I agree. A lot of corporations and me working with very young people graduating and trying to look for work, I can see that it's very different. I don't understand it. Oh no, sorry. I understand it, but I may not agree. I guess is the way to. But Yeah, and I like how they're addressing it. My concern is on, I guess, two things: scalability and monetization. Um, I wasn't so sure if their subscription model would be something that would able to sustain them throughout. But again, I think we're not the first people to tell them that. They mentioned that other mentors have already told them that they should get into the other more boring or less exciting side of things, but actually do make money. So I think that there is a future where they could marry those two things, where they do a lot of these culture stuff to gather the Gen Z, but at the same time provide a lot of these boring stuff that the big corporations are willing to pay. Then we have an ecosystem, and that is, I think, the happy ending for them. I think so. That those are my concerns: monetization and scalability. They don't have it right now, but they are poised, or they're in that trajectory towards that.
This year, we have received more than 90 applications for the Seedstars Manila pitching competition, the local chapter of the largest competition for startups in emerging markets. We had 7 great entrepreneurs pitching online, and after a very long and difficult deliberation with the jury, we finally have a winner. The winner of today's event will participate in the regional phase of the competition, competing with fellow entrepreneurs from Asia Pacific. And among other prizes, will be awarded a free month of the Seedstars Investment Readiness Program, a program developed by Seedstars that aims at supporting startups in their journey to raise funds. So now, it's finally time. The 2020 Seedstars Manila winner is Gabriel from MedHive.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yes!
Yeah. So we have Nigel here, my other co-founder.
Whoa!
Oh my God. Okay.
If you want to share a few words, please.
Okay. So thank you so much from the Seedstars team. Thank you so much for organizing this event. And I'd like to thank also all the mentors we've talked to over this year, learning and pitching, and all the times we failed, all the time of pitches I've messed up. It's all really led up to, eventually helping us in creating something and doing something as great as what we're doing. And we really hope we can bring a gigantic difference to how hospitals really work.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. I'm seeing a lot of congratulation messages here in the chat. So of course, we would like to congratulate, first of all, congratulations again, a great job. And of course, we want to congratulate all the other participants for the amazing job they're doing for fostering the growth of the Philippines entrepreneurship landscape. So it was really inspiring for me, and I guess for everyone else watching this, to hear about your projects and innovative ideas. And as I was mentioning before to all of you, the jury had a really, really hard time to select the winner, because this time it was really tough, as all of you have like amazing projects going on. So we wish you really all the best in your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks a lot to all the people connected with us today. It has been a great and insightful week, and we are really, really happy to be closing this amazing Philippine Startup Week 2020. The Seedstars Manila event is coming to an end, and I'm really glad to introduce you to our last speaker, who is going to deliver the closing remarks. It is a great honor to introduce you to Dr. Rafaelita M. Aldaba. Dr. Rafaelita is Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation of the Department of Trade and Industry, and serves as a member of the Board of Governors of the Philippine Board of Investments. She's responsible for the DTI's initiatives on innovation and entrepreneurship, startup ecosystem development, national competitiveness, accreditation of conformity assessment bodies, and trade and industrial policy research. Prior to her appointment in government, Dr. Aldaba served as a senior research fellow and acting vice president of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. She has extensive research experience and authored various publications on development issues in the Philippines and Asia. She has also conceptualized and managed research projects with various international organizations, including the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, the Canadian International Development Agency, and the United States Agency for International Development. It is my pleasure to give the floor now to Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba. Welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Secretary Ramon Lopez, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, Secretary Gregorio Honasan II, Undersecretary Rowena Guevara, Assistant Secretary Manny Caintic, Mr. Giovanni Corradini, Seedstars Global, to all our private sector partners, PhilExport and Cubo, our community partners, distinguished speakers, local and international startups and startup enablers, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is with great pleasure to be joining you once again in the 2020 Philippines Startup Week. As we reach the end of this week-long celebration, it is amazing to see how the local and international startup community gathered virtually to inspire innovation, to promote tech and entrepreneurship, and to showcase the country's flourishing startup ecosystem. This year has been challenging for all of us with the disruptions, the volcanic eruption, the pandemic, economic crisis, and the recent typhoon. Filipinos are known to be resilient, flexible, and resourceful. Long used to crisis, we resort to our own imagination and innovation. We are entering the new normal with great optimism and high entrepreneurial spirit. Just to cite a few highlights, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez, DOST Secretary De La Peña, DICT Secretary Honasan, and Cubo President Meili delivered inspiring messages for the startup community. Cubo Innovation Hub, recognized as the PSHEERED Startup Ecosystem Awardee during the 4th TBI Virtual Summit of the DOST. Cubo also showcased high potential and fast-growing Filipino startups. The Arise Startup Pitch Competition, a national pitching competition organized by the Startup Village, was also conducted with MedHive winning first place, Next Pay second place, and Zagana as third place. Yesterday, no less than the Honorable Vice President of the Philippines, Leni Robredo, graced the Startup Pinay event. Tonight, we have witnessed the Seedstars World Competition with Filipino startups pitching online and with MedHive declared as our 2020 Seedstars Manila winner. Congratulations again, MedHive, and we wish you all the best, especially as you compete in the regional phase of Seedstars. Now, for some key takeaways, the opening session highlighted that many of the innovation and solutions in response to COVID-19 came from startups. There were various contact tracing apps that emerged, along with data gathering apps, supply chain and logistics monitoring apps, chatbots for telemedicine, e-commerce, social apps, among others. All this illustrate how people become more creative and imaginative in times of crisis. The three major events, DICT's Innovation, DOST's TBI Virtual Summit, and DTI's Slingshot Conference, pointed out that innovation and startups are crucial in achieving a fast, sustainable, resilient, and inclusive recovery. Another important takeaway is the need for perseverance, agility, and optimism, which are key to surviving, especially during these challenging times, along with various forms of support from the government, industry, and academe. Lastly, collaboration. With government working together and collaborating with industry, academe, and other stakeholders, we know that we will get through this. Moving forward, the government reaffirms its commitment to support the thriving startup community through the Innovative Startup Act. The DICT will continue to populate the Philippine Startup website and to implement its digital startup programs. The DTI is excited for the full implementation of the Philippine Startup Development Program registration, Startup Venture Fund in coordination with the National Development Company, Startup Business One-Stop Shop in coordination with the Anti-Red Tape Authority, and the Internationalization Program. Lastly, the DOST is going to implement a more responsive startup grant program aligned with the Innovative Startup Act. Finally, the Philippine Startup Week served as a platform to showcase our young and talented startups. The DTI, together with DOST, DICT, Cubo, and our partner communities, will continue to do more collaborative activities as we grow and develop a more robust startup ecosystem. To the startup community, thank you once again for joining us, and we'll see you all next year